Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 121 of Beer Night the Podcast Adjunct series. We are back with a fantastic episode. The week that we took off due to my unfortunate, both, I guess, illness a couple weeks ago. We are back with that episode tonight. I am super excited. This is a brewery that we've wanted to have on for a number of years, and it is now a local for me, so that makes it extra special. So I'm very excited to get into that. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the convo and the beers, this episode is sponsored by the good folks at Manscaped. Once again, give them some applause. There we go. So breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code BAOS for 20% off and free shipping. It's BAOS, 20% off, free shipping, manscaped.com. So these ones, once again, I haven't had an opportunity to try this just yet, but because do you want me to really show you this covered in hair? It's kind of gross. But I'm very excited. So it's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard. So say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger, which is this bad boy here. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, which is this thing right here. Look at that, 20 of those bad boys. With one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. So that's right, face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower. I like the idea of it. Don't know if I do it because then you can't see shit. Because you need a mirror. That's going to get foggy. But if you're into it and you don't have to look, you know what I'm saying? To avoid all that hair in the sink. The titanium-coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Pro Kit doesn't end there, though. They have created 4 dermatologists, tested formulations for your post-trim care. First, there is a beard shampoo and conditioner. You need to remember all your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easy to damage than the hair on your head. That's why the kit has made shampoo and conditioner specially designed to moisturize, reduce ingrown hairs, and replace natural oils and promote beard health. So there's this stuff. Excited to try that on the old face hair. Now the kit has Manscaped's beard oil, an essential piece of your main facial accessory. No one wants a guy whose beard is brittle and dry. I should have popped these out beforehand. I don't know why I don't do that. Beard oil. That's beard conditioner. Oh shit! I thought it was all in one. Well, fucking look at that there. That's pretty cool. And then the beard oil. I'm sorry. No. Gosh, what am I doing here? This is the beard oil. This is fun. This is fun tonight. I'm messing up. The essential piece for your main facial accessory. No one wants a guy whose beard is brittle and dry. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath while leaving a little shimmer and shine, making you look extra fine. Cap the kit off with the beard balm, which is the smaller one here. A pomade that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look to attract any fellows or dames, whatever you're into. The Pro Kit also comes with 3 free gifts. A beard brush. I really like this one because it kind of looks like a shoe brush, but it's for your beard. You can just cut that down. Comb and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code BAOS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code BAOS at manscaped.com. Beard Hedger, one stroke, one guard, 20 length. And with that, folks, once again, I'm excited as hell for this one. We got some killer beers, killer convo. Please welcome. Do you know what? I keep fucking this up. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm trying to... I feel like I'm over-concentrating and then I ruin everything. Okay, we have Ram and Brent from Fairweather Brewing and, of course, Nathan from NathanDoesBeer in the building. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to see all your faces. It's a beautiful thing. We're doing it.
Welcome, fellas.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Very stoked. Like I was saying, I now reside in Hamilton. It was always, we used to swing by Fairweather on the, usually on the trips to Niagara. Now, it's just a zip down the road. It's glorious. I love it. I'm grateful. I'm very excited to get the full story, and to get into some of these beers. So, we're doing this a little different tonight. Ram had a fun idea that each of us gets to pick the order of the beers. So, guess first. So, whoever, Ram or Brent, whoever you guys want to go first to choose the kickoff beer, please.
Brent, I'll defer to you. What do you like?
Oh wow, I was gonna do the same thing, but we'll never get anywhere. Let's go right for it. Let's start with high grade.
Ooh, that was
That's a good
unexpected.
opener.
Now, high grade is the flagship, if that is accurate. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, yeah. I think we've started saying that in the last couple of years.
Beautiful. This beer, one thing I've really appreciated about this beer, it's probably the one of, well, obviously, that I've had the most from you guys. And I love that wherever I go around town, like I almost find it everywhere. And whenever I see this beer on tap, I grab it. It is a genuine delight. It's a, is it 6%? Yeah, 6.2% IPA with Simcoe Idaho 7, which is mine and Nate's favorite hop. Citra and Mosaic. So it's a nice... do you know what? I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you guys describe it. What am I doing? Please tell.
I mean, you're doing a pretty good job. It's it's one of the first beers we ever made, and in fact, it's riffing off of the first IPA we ever made. That hop combination of kind of like the Mosaic Idaho 7. I know that they are like, conventional hops for IPAs these days, but at the time Idaho 7 was new to me, and it's just super punchy. You got that green like mango kind of thing going on, and it hasn't always been. It's been a labor of love getting it to where it was, but as much as there's been a lot of struggle, it's been fun. And as far as right now, I think it's exactly where I want it to be, which I hesitate to even say because I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to taste different. It's going to take another 5 years fighting it to get it back where we want it. But, no, it's been pretty great. And it's nice to see how well Hamilton and others have picked it up. It's we love seeing it around town. The novelty hasn't worn off. So
that's amazing. Before we keep talking, but definitely need to get in us, guys. Cheers! Pleasure to have you here finally.
Cheers.
Cheers, boys.
It's such a good beer, man. I even had friends I've funnily enough moving here. I had a bunch of mates from that I used to work at. I used to work at Apple Store in Toronto, Eden Center, and there's like 5 of us who live here, so we got a little group chat. And one of them was texting like a couple weeks ago. I was like, "Oh my god, I love this fucking beer!" Like sending pictures, not really knowing that I knew you guys. I really feel like it's a fan base. This beer, and
Absolutely.
it's such a great choice for a flagship because it's just such like an approachable New England IPA. It's like got everything that say like a haze boy or girl would want, whilst also being not super in your face. Got that nice kind of balance, like obviously the juicy, the 3 adjectives that are always on your cans, which I love. The juicy, dank, and tropical, which is exactly what it is. It's just it sort of hits all the angles. I guess it's the Simcoe and the Idaho that deliver the dank side there, and it's just yeah. I mean, how did you guys come to the idea of making this one the flagship, or did it kind of organically occur?
I think it happened pretty organically. I mean, when we first started, making beers and IPA specifically, we noticed that even though we were making various IPAs as people do, that one kind of base recipe, although it's changed so dramatically over the years, it had something at the center of it that was that I think we all really loved. And that brand high grade, I really wanted to, I wanted to get out in front of it. I wanted that one to stick. And so we had this base IPA. That's what we started calling it. I knew we always I wanted that brand to exist and to be ours before somebody else got it. So we kind of we made the beer, the brand got kind of established, but then it also it took so long to refine it and get it where we wanted to go. Is we're so many yeast strains deep and constantly rotating the timing of the dry hop, the amounts, the the cryo, the T90, the 45s, everything. It's like we've been running through this beer for a long time, even just oxygen rates, stuff like that. And finally, we're getting it to a place where it's like, in my mind, I know that we're here to like, shamelessly promote things, but that I do actually not even drink IPA that much. Like, but I drink high grade a lot more now than I even used to. I just love where it's at. I like that it's not too sweet, like uh, it's still, the hops are super punchy and stuff, but it's very drinkable. That's my speed.
I love that.
And that's putting quite a bit of pressure on yourselves too to lock in the name high grade. Like it's just so early on, and again, as you say, doing all of these tweaks that you're doing, because if you're locking in the name high grade and you want it to be one that sticks around, you really like the beer needs to it needs to deliver on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's I imagine.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Was the name a play on the dankness, I imagine?
Yeah, I had a beer back in the day, actually, like it was a long time ago, from Brass Neck, that was that just felt so chronic. It was wild how like it was so dank. It was so much like bud buster pulverized cannabis, and that mixed with like just like these beautiful like tropical characteristics is like dynamite. It made a big impression on me right away, and so been kind of chasing that dragon a little bit.
That's sick. Yeah, it's such a dope name for it. So I guess so. It sounds like just naturally you making the beer, you tweaked it, and people just gravitated to it. And I guess in this market, of haze probably still being the biggest thing for probably the last 5 years, maybe more. It just kind of like stuck around. Was that kind of where it came from? That it was just like you like I've seen people do it before, where it's just like pure numbers, like which beers are selling the most, and that kind of ends up becoming that. Or did you sort of like, was there an internal push, name aside, for being like a beer that you want to stick around? Was there like how did it sort of like come to be in that way?
We definitely pushed it. That was like, people always want like, what's next, especially when you're like, when that's the way you establish yourself as somebody who's making like a whole bunch of beers. But I mean, Brent can speak to it too. He saw sales, like when you start bringing things back, it doesn't always catch up right away, but eventually people find their way in there. But yeah, I mean, we pushed it hard for at least the past couple of years to get it to the level of acceptance where it is, because we believed in it.
Yeah, I think I remember like a conversation that kind of like started the push of it, and sometimes these things are not as interesting as you'd like them to be, but part of it was yeast management and needing to choose a beer that we have on a little more regularly so that we could keep yeast alive and go about it that way. But I remember a conversation with Ram where he said, like, we need to just make tons of high grade. Like, this beer is starting to taste awesome, and after many iterations and lots of changes to the grain bill, the process, the dry hop, everything else, we eventually got to this place where we were really happy with it, and decided to push as much of it out there as we could and see if we could make that brand really get a foothold in the surrounding area around the brewery first, and then farther out. And it worked really well. And we've got another beer that we're working on kind of doing that with now too, that we're really happy with. But it was, if it's too bad you can't have a can of, or it'd be a bottle, the very first version of high grade to try next to it, because it would be so different. Was it more of the West Coast vibe potentially, or was it just sort of like an unrefined version of this? Well, I mean, Ram can speak to like all the changes that occurred. There's a lot of them, so like some of them less perceptible over time from batch to batch, but definitely wouldn't have had the same appearance at all in the beginning. The dry hop rate changed, probably almost doubled from where it started to where it is now. and then a process that we use to give it that like stable haze that it has. We didn't have that at the beginning.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we would absolutely, like, we were running Cali for the longest time, at the beginning, the yeast that is, and we were doing that and we were getting good results. I still, like, I know a lot of people like kind of throw shade at Cali, but I like it. But it's like, after you agitate all the hops and you do all that sort of stuff, it's just like the stability isn't there, and the, like, you still get like tons of intense aromatics out of the hops and stuff, but there's a roundness and stuff that comes along with these like kind of haze strains. And so the only thing is like, they're kind of finicky and they're not as versatile, and yeast management, especially for a young brewery who doesn't have a core offering and doesn't have the type of demand. I mean, I see it happen all the time. Like, we, give yeast to people and stuff all the time, and you can see where they're at. Those early days, yeast management is a motherfucker. It's so hard. And it causes so much stress too, because you're like, you don't have a reliable, like, demand for anything. And so, like, early on, I remember just feeling like you're just flailing, like this forced kind of creativity where you gotta be putting out like brand after brand after brand, and all the while going like, how can I manage the yeast to keep it alive through all of this? So make brands that are different enough, but there can't be too many sours or whatever, because that'll kill your yeast. You can't have too much high ABV stuff, because that'll kill your yeast. You can't have too much low ABV stuff with, like, how many pale ales can you have running at the same time or whatever. All while you're struggling to establish trust and stuff and be able to sell the things. So when Brent said, like, yeah, yeast management is some of it, for sure. There's like having like a core brand or whatever where you can turn over volume, and it keeps your yeast healthy and it keeps your pipes moving, like that is when you start to make more beer, the beer gets better because the yeast is happier. Beer's not sitting around as long. You get more cracks at it. We make high grade like every week. So when we want to make tweaks, we can do it and we can see the results. You know what I mean? So it's really, really, like, that's been great, and we're super grateful for the level of acceptance this beer has got. And it's, people use that term like rent beer or whatever as if it's like something that you make because you need the money and you don't care about it. It's like, no, we love this beer, and it was trouble. It's like pure struggle factory to get it where it was going, and now that it is, we're stoked. We love to make it every year. It's great.
Yeah, it's not the most profitable beer either to kind of choose as a flagship. There are better options from that standpoint, but we just, we love having this one around, and we think it's a great sort of testament to like what our brewers can do, and what we can do at the brewery. And we could have gone with something like cheaper and simpler, but this beer makes like a little bit more of a statement for us, I think.
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that I have a platform, I'm just going to talk about what I hate. I hate that narrative. I hate that narrative that IPAs are easy to make. Fuck that. They are not, man. They're very difficult beers to make. And I know that there's people going like, oh, you just throw hops at it and kind of mask whatever. That's insane. You've never done it. You've never had like pressure put on you to make IPA that'll stand up to other really good IPAs. If you have, then you would know it's not easy. So that's another one of those things that, like, IPA is great. You may not want to drink it 24/7 or whatever, but you got to respect it. It's tough to make.
I would love to play that. I would love to play that snippet on a loop for a few people I can think of.
Maybe that might be the trailer. You're right though, man, because it's not like it was in 2017 or whatever, where like there was whatever half a dozen in the province, if not the country, as far as New England's are concerned. And then now, every brewery is doing one, and to be able to stand out in this market, it's very difficult, and you really have to be making something very, very good. And the fact there's not like that many very, very good ones shows how difficult it is to make this stuff. So I think you're 100%.
Yeah, it's a pickle, and I mean, there is a lot of it out there. I mean, it's a great time to be drinking beer. It's better time to be a beer drinker than it is to be a beer maker. Although it's not bad for that either. But it's yeah, it's been a very challenging beer to make, and even that style, I still like. I get the impression that a lot of people in the industry even don't feel this way. Like they like as if EAs aren't that exciting. Like I get really excited to lean into one and then to see how they change like over a week or two in package or whatever. See when the edges get smoothed out off a little bit. Like that to me is like that's pretty interesting stuff. It gets exciting.
Oh yeah. Another thing that I really like about this that kind of you mentioned, and Nate, I think we talked about it on one of the last couple of podcasts, is when the brand of the beer, the liquid evolves, but the brand stays. There's something really cool about that because, like you guys were saying, it's hard work to build a brand, and there's obviously the brewery, but then there's the brand. So like building the brand of that beer and being able to tweak it and change the liquid to evolve either with the tastes of you guys or the tastes of beer drinkers is like something I just I don't know, I really like it. I think that's really dope, and it just shows that like I don't know, you could have had something like, I don't know, you dropped an English IPA back in the day or something like that, and you're like, this is what an IPA is, and then you just steadfastly hold on to that shit and just don't move and be stubborn as hell, but that's not really going to get you anywhere, where you got something like this, where the beer can evolve, like you were saying, Brent, as well, like, try this in a bottle 5-6 years ago, compared to now, you'll see the difference, and I just think that's dope. But I think some of the strongest brands, arguably, if you want to talk about Ontario, like in the province, I think have done that and evolved over time. So I think that's just real like credit to you guys and to for what you've been able to do with this and be able to sort of parlay a hard to make beer that isn't a massive money maker into a big favorite for a lot of people both in the region and beyond. It's fantastic. Love to see it.
Yeah, I saw it too. I was listening recently to one of your episodes where I think it was the top 10, and you were talking about Bernie's in there, and about being able to get high grade at Bernie's. And I don't know if you know that they actually do like $5 Fridays. They sell pints of high grade for $5. So we should definitely hit the place up later on and go there for some $5 Fairweathers.
I would love that, man. That is awesome. That was actually specifically the dudes I was telling you that I was hanging out with. That's where we were, and they were asking me, like, obviously they go, "Hey, what should I get?" I'm like, "Fucking high grade, bro. Don't even question me about this."
Yeah.
Shit. And they're crushing it, and like it's just really cool to see that, and to see that sort of local fave. And I don't believe I introduced them to it as such, but the fact that it was those same people who were texting me saying about, yeah, it's great, $5 at Bernie's, mate, that's beautiful. Food's great there too, very very convenient.
Yep. Yeah.
So with that, I know we spent a lot of time on this, but I thought that this was probably the best way to start it off. So great call on this one. I'd love to get from both you guys your beer history, so how both of you discovered craft beer, how you got into it, and how kind of that led along the path to the brewery. Whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Ram.
Me?
Gentlemen, both of you.
Well, I first got into beer, like my first sort of like introduction to beer, and I'll try not to make it too lengthy, but was I got a job like randomly. I was sleeping on a buddy's couch. I had moved to Victoria without actually having a home to move to, and so I was staying with a buddy, and he invited me out there. Actually, it turns out, so I get there and he's like, "You got a couch here," and it turns out that there's this other guy sleeping on the couch, and I was like, "Shit! I thought that this was for me," and and so I was forced to like be friends with this guy. Fortunately, it was easy because he's a good dude. But we go around like kind of looking for jobs, and we meet up at the end of one day, and he's like, "Hey, I got a job at this like brewery or whatever," and it was this place called Canoe Brew Pub down by the water in Victoria, and started working there just as like a busboy. Is this big like high volume pub, right? And I sort of got sort of into the beer, but even still, like there's just a lot of people there. I found it interesting, and then as part of our training, the brewmaster, his name is Sean Hoyne, uh, started just kind of showing us around the brewery, and it jumped out at me as like immediately interesting. What I found was like all the process pipe and stuff because I had worked for plumbers before, and I was like, oh, like how does all this sort of stuff happen? Like who puts this all together? And Sean goes like, "Well, I did." And I go like, "Oh, shit. Okay. Well, then we got something to talk about." And we kind of hit it off and started talking about beer all the time. And he was a great dude, make tons of time for me all the time. He would show me kind of beers in tank. I worked there for a couple of years. Never made it much past busser though. I guess wasn't yeah. I didn't excel that well in that role, but he was dope. He made great time for me all the time. And soon enough, just after being exposed to it, I kind of got into beer, the beers that were made in that pub, and then things continue to jump out at me. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, Fat Tug from out there, from Driftwood, stuff like that. And I started to get really into beer. And then a couple of years passed by, and I was working construction, but I would still be at the pub every once in a while on the weekends. And this guy Sean told me that he was going out on his own. He's going to start his own brewery, and if I was interested, I could help him build it. And so I was like, okay. Showed up there one day, and he goes like, "Here's some wheelbarrows and a shovel. A bunch of concrete's gone. Like, I need you to dig holes. We're digging drains, right?" And so one thing led to another. I ended up spending like 6 months with him, kind of like helping him start up his brewery, from like straight up opening the door, digging drains, cutting concrete, doing stuff like that, to building glycol systems and building a cooler and doing all this stuff, and watching kind of like the way the industry came together around him, and all the people that were like, in his orbit were so supportive. And we would always like, he was amazing. It would always be like, tools down, let's have a beer, let's hang out. And it was just like the most amazing work experience. I was as enamored by like the technical and like mechanical elements of the brewery as I was about the beer itself, but also just like the experience, the hanging out, the shooting the shit after work, all that sort of stuff. Like it just meant the world to me. And at that time, I had already kind of made my mind up that I was going to move back to Victoria, or so I was going to move back to Ontario from Victoria and be kind of closer to my family and stuff. And that's where I learned that there was this brewing program in Niagara, and so I had to do some like brushing up on school and stuff like that to get in there. And then fortunately, like I was able to get in, probably thanks to like Sean giving me a good recommendation and stuff. And then yeah, that's sort of how the ball kind of got rolling. That's where I met Brent.
I love that. What's Sean's brewery's name in BC?
Hoyne Brewing Company. They're kicking ass out there. It's amazing to see like the level of growth that they've achieved at there. Brent and I went out in September, and he's done so well. It's just wild, like to see a brewery go from like this little tiny mom and pop with like me and women and children cutting trench drains to being like one of the bigger breweries out in BC, and it couldn't have happened to like more lovely people. So to see them going at that clip, and I mean, furthermore, once I got into school, like you have kind of summers off, or you used to anyway. And so I went back out west to work for Sean in Victoria for the summer, and then came back to finish school. I was kind of like messing around, didn't really have like a clear opportunity that I was interested in as far as the brewing industry. So I was bartending, I was doing whatever. I was kind of spinning my tires a little bit. Uh, and then one day the phone rings and it's Sean Hoyne, and he goes like, "Hey, we've been keeping in touch. Like I've grown out of this brewing equipment that we started the brewery with. And I think it would be great to see you with it. So like, would you be interested in, starting a brewery? And like with all this equipment I have, it's sitting around, it's basically in my way." And I remember kind of going like, that'd be nice and all, but like, I don't have any money. So like, yeah, what else is going on? And we had a conversation. I got off the phone. I told my wife Maya, and she was like, "You're just gonna like, just kind of shut that conversation down like that?" And I was like, she was like, "Maybe you should call him back and see kind of what he means by that." And so I did, and he was like, "Yeah, like I want to see this whole thing happen. So like, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? Blah blah blah." And so I kind of hastily came up with some sort of nebulous idea of what a brewery might look like, and he was like, "Okay, well, why don't we take this equipment to the bank, see if we can leverage it against a loan, and see if we can get something started. I trust you, and like, let's do it." And so me and Brent and Sean and stuff have been kind of doing it ever since. Although Sean is out west, he's coming here in March for like the first time since we were in construction mode. He's been pretty amazing. He just goes like, "Yep, looks like you guys are doing great. I'll see you around. I'll talk to you when I talk to you," kind of thing.
He's
and
a
so
partner?
that's sort of the yeah.
Amazing. What a legend.
Yeah, he's without him, this whole thing wouldn't exist. I have the utmost like love and respect for that guy. He's an absolute legend. He's the best.
That's cool as shit, man. I love that. And then, so Brent, so what was your sort of story leading up to you guys connecting and jumping in?
Yeah, it's not as interesting, but yeah, before I went to brewing school, like Ram said, and that's where I met Ram. I was about 10 years post university, which like for that I went through for accounting and economics, and never quite really found like a stable career with that. And so eventually met my partner Brandy, and we settled in Niagara because she's really interested in wine. And she was working at this winery, and I was again like struggling to find any work in my industry, and she was actually the one who convinced me to apply for the college. I had recently worked at a winery out there during harvest, and so kind of like Ram alluded to, like I worked with a lot of the same equipment, and I had taken an interest in working with all that same kind of stuff like process piping and pumps and different things, and I found that really interesting and fun, and never really occurred to me that like I liked drinking beer, I liked trying different beers and everything, but never thought about working with it, didn't know how it was made or anything, and just kind of applied out of like sheer just frustration with not being able to find stable work in Niagara at the time. And so I thought, well, I'll just pop back to school, I guess, 10 years later after leaving school, and get an OSAP loan and try and do that, because making ends meet was difficult at the time. And met some awesome people at the college, learned tons of stuff. Out of college, worked at a brewery up in cottage country and had the opportunity to basically run the whole place top to bottom. It was a really small brewery where, all kinds of things would always go wrong, and great learning experience. And that's where I was when I got the call from Ram about, the story he just told. So
very cool. I want to continue that. Do we want to jump to the next beer, and then we'll keep to the next part of the story? Who's up for choosing? Ram, you want to choose this time?
I do.
Okay. Talk to me, brother.
What's up next?
In my cardboard
in his little cardboard cooler. Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm excited. There's so many options.
Well, I think I don't know. I don't want to sound dismissive of it and call it a palate cleanser, because it's not. But I just want to drink. I just want to drink Pillow Talk. That's no good reason for it other than I just love it.
Ooh. Oh yes. I've been wanting to try this one. I'm excited for this one. Heading into Crispy Land, ladies and gentlemen, with this bad boy. Another great name. One thing that you guys do very well, very consistently, is the naming of the beers. I love that. Pillow Talk is a sick name. This is a dry hop pilsner with Moteca. Fantastic choice, 5%. Mate, I am amped at this one. This is relatively new, eh? I'm pretty sure I saw the email blast maybe only a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yes, but a third crack at it, I think. So yeah, new this time around.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think, what did we first make that at the start of the pandemic? I think that was one of the beers that was kind of in tank when the world fell apart there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a part of me that thinks that maybe even that was the second batch, our second crack at it. But yeah, that's the way I remember it the most too. Was full COVID apocalypse beer.
Right.
I respect it. You need those ones.
Dang, you can see right through this. That is lovely.
Yeah, that is.
No filter on any of our beers either. Really, I guess actually that's not true. We have a filter now.
Yeah, we run a little soft filter. I mean, it doesn't amount to much. It's still we run high grade through it, so it's not like we're filtering out haze or anything.
Right. Yeah.
It's just
no proper to get this clarity anyway.
If you became attached to the 2017-2018 Fairweather Schmutz, I apologize. Those days are over.
I respect it. Oh mate, this is gorgeous. Oh, it's fantastic. Oof. I love the dry hop. So tell us about. Actually, you know what? Let's do the sipping first. So we always like to do the cheers. Nate, you want to do the cheers? Because the problem is we'll end up taking all the photos and fuck around, and we never get to the cheers. Boys,
that's how it goes. Cheers.
Cheers, lad.
Ding.
Oh yeah, there she is. Oh yeah. Gorgeous. Moteca is a very, very good choice for this one.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah, so it's just talk to us.
Oh, it's a beautiful little hop. I mean, it seems to slide in nicely everywhere we use it. It's not the loudest hop right out of the bag or whatever, but this one, I mean, I get a whole bunch of obviously lime zest and jasmine tea, and a little bit of this this subtle fruit loopy thing in the back that we always kind of identify. It's funny, this is not a beer that we make very consistently, and every time we have made it, it's there are these certain beers where we go back to them and I think there's a kind of a silent anticipation. You go is there any way this is going to be the same as it was when we made it a year or two ago? And it does. It just hits you like a little nostalgia, a little kind of a little pop of nostalgia in there, because it's always seems to be the same, which is what we want. We don't really, if we wanted to change it, we would, but consistency is nice with this, and it's this little fruit loopy thing that lives in the background that those of us who've been around beer for a long time. We are kind of looking forward to. But yeah, very delicate in terms of like, a dry hop, like it's not super loud. I think even like the label, it's all watercolors. The term pillow talk, like the more than words on the side, it's meant to denote uh hey uh things that are, you have to kind of like read between the lines a little bit. That's the purpose of it.
Okay, I love that, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I see on your like in your description of it on Instagram here, I was seeing that it said it was just like a barely perceptible touch of like a moteca in here, but it's interesting the kind of the layers of subtle flavors that it adds there, and the Fruit Loop is interesting. I don't think I've ever like I've ever heard that description before of like especially for a pilsner, but that's a nice touch there. And you touched on something when you were describing the label here, because branding is obviously something that we were going to want to talk about, and
Yes.
It sounds to me like the branding that you came up with for this one was pretty deliberate, even in terms of the flavor profile of the beer. Like you were saying, it's all it's all watercolors and and quite delicate and whatnot. And the high grade one, the label is of course and if I'm not mistaken, this is the same label that high grade has had since the beginning, with the with the green plants and the birds and with the purple flowers and whatnot. Are all of where I'm leading with this? Are all of your labels? Is it that much thought going into all of the beers in terms of like how it relates to their flavor profile and whatnot? Can you talk us through the thought process with those?
Yes.
Go on.
Sorry, that was a very long-winded question.
Yeah, no, I under it's a good question, and the aim is to always fucking hit this really pithy like little spot, when you really feel like the brand works in a million different ways. I've always thought, and you know what, we just talked about Sean Hoyne. I think like this is another thing that comes from Sean, and like I uh aspire to, I'm inspired by some of the work that he's done. If you make a beer, and a lot of people say like, oh, beer is art and this and that, and like, I don't know, yeah, maybe in some ways. It's also a very restrictive medium. If you do want to refer to it as art, it's pretty restrictive. Like you have a handful of ingredients you can use. It's technically there's a ton of limitation. You put the beer in a bottle or a can or whatever, and then you have a bunch of label art. That's a wonderful way to express yourself, because of, the traditional art involved. All the words, all the copy, all that stuff, it's all important. And then the liquid itself. And I've always kind of thought, and again, inspired by some of the experience that I've had with other beers, notably beers from Hoyne, is that if you take a beer, you look at it, you open it up, you read whatever it has to say, you open it up, you pour it into a glass, you look at it, you smell it, you drink it, you go back to that package again, you look it over, you think about it, and it elicits some sort of like, thought or emotion or whatever, and ultimately you are reluctant to discard that package. I would say like discard by all means. It's recycling. Discard it. But if you're reluctant to, that's a win. Like that's as small as you can do. Create that that hesitance to discard this thing that is like objectively trash, and you just won massively. So it would be nice to be able to do it every time, and that's what we're always trying to do. And sometimes you nail it, and to varying degrees you're successful. Sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't work quite as well. I wish they were all home runs, but truthfully they're not.
I feel like these two are absolutely home runs, and I think you basically said that, Nate. Like there's something like it tastes like you're drinking the label, and it's like 2 for 2 right now, and it's weird in a great way because it's so uncommon, and it's such a thoughtful approach to branding. Like, look, okay, maybe you're right, and I love that. No brewery I've ever seen and we've ever spoken to over hundreds of episodes have ever, I would say, been cocky or overconfident with their shit. I think that's the one thing I think is endearing about the brewing industry is that everyone is hypercritical of their own stuff in every aspect because they just want it to be better. I love that. This is just like, it's crazy like how much, like what you said before, Nate, is exactly the situation. Like I was thinking that, it was funny you mentioned it because I was thinking that exactly as I was pouring it and smelling it. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like this is like to the point that it's like strange. Like, wow, how did they even visual? It's like you're seeing a visual of what the beer is going to taste like in front of you whilst you're consuming it. And it's I like that analogy around with the with like if you don't want to discard the packaging, then you're like, all right, we're onto something. And it's cool. And one thing we always notice is that breweries typically, well, up until 5-6 years ago, probably, you guys remember 10 years ago, Ontario, that's when I lived in Toronto, and even Montreal. Montreal was even worse. Quebec was worse. But, like, no, breweries didn't give a fuck about their branding. It was horrible. Remember, like, Trafalgar and stuff, and, like, things like that, where it was just word art. It was literally made in, like, clip art type thing. It was just super bad because it didn't really matter back then. And as beer got larger and more popular and stuff, and it became like any other consumer product where the marketing and the branding of it was equally as important as what's inside the can. So you guys definitely have a way with this. And like you said, even if everyone isn't a home run, it's the consistency of the the square at the front, the little writing on the side that's just a little sprinkle of something extra in there. Like, I don't know. It's just pretty. And it's attractive, and it reflects. I also would argue it reflects the experience in the brew pub too. It's just sort of like from top to bottom. Your whole branding is a great experience from a consumer perspective. It's very cool, guys.
Well, that's very generous. Thank you.
Yeah, we're both big fans. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something that stuck out there with the reluctance to to discard it. There's a restaurant here in Ottawa called Citizen. That's one of my favorites in town, and their beer list that includes a lot of your stuff. Yeah, I mean, you must know them because they sell a lot of your stuff there. And
no one.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I love them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's been a little while since I've been back, but the last time I was there, and for a long time, I know they on one of the shelves of their bar, they had a whole row of Fairweather bottles, and it looks just absolutely gorgeous because every single bottle on there, like Cee was just describing, has the white square in the center, and there's a different interesting wallpaper the design around it, and it makes for a perfect full set along the top row of the bar, and it just goes to show that even they have a reluctance to discard it for very good reason.
I didn't know that. That's so nice. I love that.
I know a few people who have walls in their house of our packaging that they were reluctant to discard, and I think that's so lovely. It's cool to see every once in a while I'll go over to somebody's house and they've got some of our stuff on the wall, which is cool to see.
It's dope,
Well,
man.
I think we'd be remiss to not mention like what that is all about, and the truth is like that is all Maya. My wife Maya does all of this shit, and like
Wow.
without her, we would be, I don't know what we would do. What we do, we would just be like a fundamentally different place.
Mm.
Like at the most kind of core level. All, in the beginning, so Maya went to school at OCAD for drawing and painting, and
Okay.
she had never done any kind of digital work before. And I think, I don't know if there are people out there who don't experience this, but um, when we were starting the brewery, for me anyway, that whole like imposter syndrome is definitely a thing. You know what I mean? You just feel like you don't deserve it. You're not like, you don't have enough experience. You're not legit enough, whatever. And so you try to do everything you can to mitigate that. And one of the things is like the perception of it. So like I never wanted Maya to have anything to do with it because she and she frankly didn't either. Um, because you didn't want it to seem homemade. You know how many places you see where it looks like everything is done in house and not in a good way. Um,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
that's what I kind of like wanted to avoid. And but we went through a couple of designers and stuff, and realized that it wasn't their fault. But like creative people can't just like make your whole thing for you. You have to have a vision, and you have to like have gone through the motions, and even have a language with which to communicate with them. And I didn't have any of those things. This whole thing started off with that phone call, and um, it just started happening like a snowball. It was going
Mm.
so fast, and so Maya started like, we go like, okay, well, like let's get into like Adobe Illustrator. Let's see what you can do. And it's so rudimentary, and like learning how to do the most basic functions of that stuff. And her and I staying up all night and like trying to come up with these things that resembled labels and like and whatever. We were very like inspired, but not very technically proficient. And over time, you know, we've had enough of a like dialogue with one another where like, you know, we disagree about stuff. We get into arguments. We get like you know, insulted by the other's opinion because these are creative matters and they mean a lot to whoever's really deeply in them. But we know what we mean to each other, and we know that we're on the same team. And so we end up uh, now we come to this place where like we're not completely, but we're largely simpatico, and we understand what the objective is, and we can like, you know, we still release beers late all the time because we go like, you know, we just axed 2 or 3 label attempts, and it's like with Maya, I feel comfortable having that type of conversation because I don't have any skills. Like, how am I supposed to tell some person with this massive skill set and is so talented that like I don't like their work? You can only do that if you're like you're deeply, deeply like comfortable and you feel safe with somebody, and they can only accept that under the same circumstance. And
Mm.
that's what we have going on, and I don't think we could do it any other way. I mean, we've made hundreds of beers with original art. Um, we'd be in the we'd be bankrupt, and we'd be through, you know, dozens of designers who couldn't stand working with me, um, and we'd have shittier results. So like
Mm.
we would be a fundamentally different place. We wouldn't get to release as many beers. We wouldn't like, it would be an unrecognizable project
Mm.
with it.
It's a cool way to look at it. And you are right, though. It is. And you guys have, has this branding essentially been this way from the beginning? I mean, from what I recall, it is, but has it changed much?
No, well, that thing of the wallpaper and the box, I call it like the panel. So there's like the wallpaper and the panel and the little three words. Or a handful of words to describe it. At first they were descriptions, and then they started turning into like you try to get as pithy as you can with them and like make three words line up with the label art, the beer, the and the name of the beer, and you try to make those things play as nicely as you can. And sometimes that is the most challenging thing I do. But uh, the general layout was kind of born out of the fact that like is largely indecision. Like we can't commit to a color palette because I'm not comfortable with it. So you go like, well, there's no discernible color palette here. We've got like kind of an off white with largely black text, but you don't want to like pigeonhole yourself in terms of art. You want to keep it interesting. And so we go like, well, so long as it can be kind of sort of repetitive and largely like that wallpapery thing is exactly what we were kind of going for. And you see a lot more of that now, but at the time I hadn't really seen it before. But it was like it seemed like kind of oddly like it was just seem pragmatic. You go like, we can still have nice art. The package can still be identifiable because you have this little panel on the front that can give you your information and stuff. And you don't have to, like buy into like any kind of color palette. And so this is what we should do, at least for now, until we figure that out. And then we just never figured it out. So it persists.
Hey.
Yeah, I think at the time it was quite a contrast to, if you went and looked at the shelves in the craft beer section at the LCBO, it seemed like there was kind of like an arms race to see who could make like the loudest packaging. And so we tried to go in the other direction, thinking that, if we ever ended up on this shelf next to these beers, like the only way to stand out in a sea of brands that were really loud was to like tone it down and go in a different direction. And so we started out with actually like really sparse patterns, and that's changed over time as Maya's had like more time to put into the different labels and more like sort of concepts developed for different brands of what the label should look like, and more detail has come into play on some of the labels. But that was kind of where that started. I remember having that conversation early on, was like, to stand out in this climate with all of these other brands, you got to do something different, and the only way to do that was to do something a little more toned down.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. That's cool to hear that the way that kind of came about. That it was kind of this like accidental sort of thing that just kind of became the identity because that's what you started with, and you just refined it as opposed to changing it. I almost think now looking at it, I couldn't even picture anything else. Like I feel like you guys have probably felt the same way. Like this is what the brand is, and it kind of has to be this.
Yeah, and there are elements of it that you're still left unsatisfied with, but it does like you go like you can change them over time and tweak it and like truly like evolve it. But yeah, it does make you like worried for a time where you like, can we sustain this kind of dynamic with like, Maya and I and our family and the demands on that, and like and for her to like be pumping out is potentially like as much as a original art every week or two with me working as much as I do, and then her trying to like pursue some of her own interests because like everybody's got those. So like it is like one of those things, but I don't think I think I would be so devastated to like see Maya no longer in that, because that's like that's a point of like what do you call it, like just like closeness for me, you know, like the more I like, you know, the brewery expands, people start taking on other kinds of roles. One of the ones that is like the most meaningful to me is actually not even one that I do. It's like it's Maya's work. And if that were to go away and somebody else were to start doing it, I don't know. It would just leave me feeling so disconnected.
I can see that for sure. It's because it's so integrally like connected, like it is the brand, and it's sort of one without the other. It just would be odd. Whereas like some breweries might have like they start off with like multiple people doing it, so it's sort of not as big a deal. But you've got one person who obviously is intrinsically tied to the brewery handling the branding, so it's a different situation. I love it though. It's cool. So then, where we left off, I know we sort of cut you guys off from when the point where the phone calls with Sean. I know we're probably due for another beer within the next like few minutes and stuff as well, but maybe we could get into the next. Do we want to do the next beer, or do we want to get into this next phase of the story? What are we feeling?
We should probably crack the next one and then get it. Yeah, we should crack the next one and then let's get it, and then let's continue.
I can figure it out.
Ooh. So, whose decision? Nate, you want your call?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm wearing my cheeky lactose shirt today, so we should probably go with Fonso, which is the lactose beer of the night.
All right.
Can you zoom that shirt in for me? I want to get a better look at that.
Oh yeah, sure.
Nice.
So it's
okay.
And for anyone listening as opposed to watching, it looks like a Lacoste logo, and the alligator has the snout of a cow.
I love that. That's great.
It's a cheeky shirt from from an ice cream shop called Cow's Creamery, and I couldn't resist when I saw it.
That's great.
The funny part of it, Nate actually got me the white one of that for Christmas last year, because we have an Instagram account a Twitter account called Team Lactose. It was the thing that isn't really as big now in 2023 as it was back in the day when, I don't know if you guys remember, everyone was furious that people enjoyed lactose in beer for a while there. So it was probably, what was it, 2017 maybe?
Something like that.
Something like that.
2018, yeah.
Yeah. So people got really pissed. So we were like, we just want to antagonize people, make this lactose thing, and just encourage it. Like, it was around when like milkshake IPAs were like all the rage with the kids type of thing.
They're still. I mean, I get it. Like these beers to me, like these lactose, like fruited sours and stuff. I don't drink that much of them, but they make me truly giddy in a way that no other beers really do at the brewery. Like, I get so fired up about these beers when you try them out of the bright tank, and like you're like, like, we did it, we made candy. It's like, this shit is for kids. How did it happen where you just make like beer candy? It's hilarious, and I love it.
I love that. Yeah, and it was a thing of like, we didn't even care that much about it. We just thought that the outrage around it was so ridiculous, and but similarly, it was a case of whenever we would have one, we would just get that excited about it. Similarly, because it's like you say, it's like candy. It's they're fun beers. They're certainly hit or miss, but you can't deny that they're fun.
Yeah, people didn't like fun for a while there.
Sometimes some people don't want to have fun. We've baked hedonism into this thing. That is what we like to do. Like, we like to crush beers, and we like to hang out with all of our pals. The people that work here are our friends. Like, we like to hang out and party and drink beers and talk shit, and and laugh and not like not take shit too seriously. And so like all this stuff, like it, I love these like these whatever they are, people stuck in a dark room somewhere coming up with recipes, and somberly assembling them. Like that's great. I do love that. I love to drink that shit, but I'm out here to have a good time.
And I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. I feel like. Oh, sorry, go on, Brent.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the idea that putting certain things in beer just like really offends someone's sensibilities, much like your lactose Twitter account. Like I don't know, it just makes me want to do it more when it bothers people. It just it you can do whatever you want, and if people like it, then you should make those beers, I think, and you should make those jokes, and yeah, not taking things too seriously. There's plenty of beers you can have if all you want is something super super traditional, and we can make those too, and we do. But once in a while, you're gonna get something super weird like a banana imperial, whatever that was.
They're just worried. It's like communism. It gets a foothold. Next thing you know, all your fucking natty lights full of lactose, and you give them an inch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, why the fuck not, right? I mean, like from Fairweather, you might have this Fonso Mango Sour with lactose, cardamom, vanilla, and vanilla and cinnamon. But at the same time, you've also got California King, which is one of the best West Coast IPAs that I had in the past year. Like, there's no reason you can't have both. I don't think.
Could not.
Well, yeah, and I mean we have 10 taps, so yeah, we could make 10. Sort of, they'd be a little too similar for my liking if we avoided, some of these sometimes cartoonish beers. I think it's fun and gives like unique options for it's something that I love is when people come through the door and they go like, what is that? And then they drink it and they go, wow, you pulled it off. And like, that sounds so weird and it worked. And I love that. And that's part of the, when you've done all these traditional styles, it's a place to go next.
It has to be objectively delicious though. Like you have to fucking
good point.
do it. And like we try to we make a really deliberate point of trying to make a really wide variety of offerings, and not because we think that that's what the market wants or whatever, although we do think that. It's because making beer is fun. I think that's why we're supposed to do it. And it's interesting. And if you did the same thing all the time, it would be boring. And it's just truly like the character of the place. That is what we want to do. And so like, and I think maybe like the result of that is like, there are many ways to kind of skin this cat. You can be a specialist. That's great. You can, whereas us, actually, I could see it maybe being a perceived weakness is that we don't have a clear enough identity when it comes to our products. They're making all kinds of stuff. You're kind of everywhere. And I get it, but we've always been all over the place and we'll continue to be that. And when, maybe the style that you've, hitched your identity to becomes passe, then when you pivot, it doesn't come across as unauthentic or whatever. Like we've always been trying to do whatever. And you know what, like we're as vulnerable to the whims of whatever the zeitgeist is at the moment anyways. So like, maybe one day people won't be making fruity lactose sours because they got sick of it. And you know what? Maybe we'll be sick of it by then too. And we'll be right there with the pack. It's like, I don't know. I'm not trying to hitch my wagon to this or whatever. It's just fun. We just like them. They're tasty. They're fun. They're hedonistic. I don't know what's not to like. They're a little too. They're a little sweet to drink all night. That's what's not to like. Other than that, I'm happy.
I totally
I
feel
love
that.
that.
Yeah, I love that a lot, and I've heard that sort of criticism before, where maybe brewers have hitched themselves to a particular style or genre or something of beer. What happens when that goes out of fashion? Obviously, they'll pivot, but they're being so well known for the other stuff. It might be a bit of a challenge to pivot. Whereas, like, what you're known for is not being known for something, and that is something that you're not the first to do that. So it's not like uncommon or weird to not do that. And I think I can't remember who's said it, but I think it's so cool to have this and this like on paper. This is something that maybe this is probably a little more toned down version of something that the folks a few years ago would have got mad at, but it would have been in that general wheelhouse. But then we just had a beautiful, well made and well executed, dry hop pilsner. So, and then like it's you guys can do to do everything. It's like you've got the traditional stuff that you execute very very well and very highly, and then you've got this more fun, crazy shit. Once again, like you said, it's beer. We're here to have fun. That was kind of mine and Nate's argument. Like it is beer. We like, and Nate kind of actually gives me shit for that because like innovation for the sake of innovation in beer, we kind of always joke about like the most ridiculous stuff. I'm just here for it. Like. I love, like, if I had walked into last time me and Nate when we were there, when we saw you there, I didn't realize, but you guys had the Luca, and you had Donna on the Luca tap. That is by far my favorite thing in the world to have. If I'm going to go to a brewery, the very first thing I'm going to do is get a crispy, and then as I go on, then I'll try some more ridiculous shit. So it's like, I like really like that you guys have that. You've got like the Luca with a really well made crispy beer, like lager, pilsner, whatever, and then you've got some kind of ridiculous shit, like you said, the banana beer from a few months back, and like something like this, which I would argue is, like I said, mildly ridiculous, but ridiculous enough that it comes under just like fun candy, and just tasting it now, it's fantastic. It looks like mango nectar. This beer, like there's no head.
It is.
It's totally mango nectar, and it's very like it looks like it'll be like a chore to swallow. It looks so thick, but it's fantastic. It's like it's actually like really balanced. It's only 5.6. I feel like it's definitely got that sort of candy, like you were saying. I'm definitely getting like that mango candy vibe from it. All of these spices and all those things are just once again on brand. It's ridiculous, but they're used well. That's the difference. Because you can have these crazy things in here, and you could fucking put like buckets of lactose in the thing, and it's like an enamel scraper type of thing, and give you a cavity off the rip. But I think this is really well executed. Like it almost like has no business being this good with what's in it. I don't know if you guys can even expand on that.
I mean, we try to make sure that everything is like first and foremost, again, like you have to be able to go like, I want to drink this. Like, and there's plenty of room. Like for example, at this very moment, it's not my style to like, I'm not that interested in putting like pastries in the kettle or in the mash tun or like, even those beers where it's like, fruit puree or the like slushy beers. We've never done that. I don't particularly like it, but I do see why people like it. And I go like, fuck yeah, man. Like, do it. Slush it up. Throw those goddamn cakes in the fucking HLT. I don't care. Do it. It's awesome. It hasn't been our thing, and that's not to say it never will be. But we like our beers. And you know what? To some extent, like, it's just the way you do things. Some people get used to doing things a certain way, and we got used to doing things our way. And so when our beers are not, they're not, bone dry, we're not some of these other breweries that they make all their beers like hella bone dry, and they're beautiful and delicate and all that stuff. You got like your Sonnenhills and Avelings and stuff, and like the way that they make those beers are like beautiful. And we don't make those, our beers are not molded that way. They're another, but they're also not like big and wild like Third Moon or whatever. We try to like find this sort of in between, because we truly like both approaches. It's great. And I think just because that's the position, I would have to assume that some people on the one side of the spectrum, like they don't like, people who are make exclusively really bone dry, delicate beers. I have to assume that they don't like those other styles of beer, and maybe I'm wrong about that. And that's why they don't make them, and they stay so far away from it. For me, it's like I genuinely like. I think we all like both things, and so we find ourselves just like our methodology leaves. Our processes leave the beers kind of falling in between, which is where we want to be. So that's good to us.
That's really interesting. Some of the beers that you do, I would describe as beautiful. And I know what you're saying, but I know exactly what you mean. Like, I feel like Pillow Talk, like Donna, like even Silky, like the straight up, like low ABV stout and stuff, like it's just money. Traditional, on style, like the people who get mad at our lactose stuff back in the day would be circle jerking over those type of beers because they're really well done. But you've also found this really cool middle ground, exactly what you're saying. And I think the best example of that, and Nate, I imagine you'll agree right now, is when we saw you in December run, we were drinking the Wishing Well, the 2022 Wishing Well, which is your annual, big pastry. I guess you call it a pastry stout. Is that fair to call it that? Ish?
Yeah, that's completely fair. We don't refer to it that way in the marketing or anything, but like, yeah, that's right.
So they're not barrel aged. We like do just so you know, this is how dope I think they are. I came in to get I came to get one for Nate and one for me, and then I saw you had the big like that chest with like the last 2 years, so I'm like, all right, fuck it, and I got all three for myself, and then I came back and got the other two for Nate for a Christmas gift, and then I got all three for my brother for a Christmas gift. So like, I just think they were the most beautifully presented beers. I'm going to sit on them maybe for a little bit, and then when Nate and I hung out there, we both had a pour of it, and it was just like, it was so interesting because it would be the ingredients of the beer are what people would consider a pastry. I had coffee. I think this one had yerba mate in it. There's some sort of a nut, maybe it's hazelnut or almonds or something. Chocolate, cacao or something. Maybe you guys can correct me for 2022.
I think the nuts were from a previous year, but this year it was toasted coconut, espresso, yerba mate. Was there cacao, vanilla, cacao maybe?
Vanilla is probably what I was thinking of. So
I don't think there's vanilla though. Yeah,
there might not. Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, it was ingredients that would typically be found in a pastry stout, but it was so refined and arguably like restrained, which is coming to that middle ground. I guess I'm just trying to like echo what you're saying, Ram. Is that like I really feel like that was a really good example because that was a big. You could have gone balls to the wall and chucked some fucking cakes and all that stuff, which I have no problem with. I enjoy those things too, but I feel like you guys found a nice middle ground to do a beer like that had all of those things in it, but was super, it was like 2 p.m. on a weekday afternoon, and we were just like happily crushing this 10 point something, percent beer that was just delicate, wasn't over the top, delicious, roasty. It was just like a nice middle ground for something like that. So it's actually, I'm more looking forward to them after drinking a full pour on draft. I think it's really cool that you guys are able to sort of, ride that line and finesse it sort of, before you can do what we just had, like Pillow Talk, and then you can do something like that Wishing Well, which is, I don't know. I think it sort of speaks to like the brand that you guys have built within yourself, like the experimental whilst being like maybe chilling on it's like sort of ridiculous, but also restrained and the execution is A1. Because sometimes you can be, people be like, and I have a problem, again, it's innovation for the sake of innovation, throwing shit in the ferment, like, go nuts. And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's a little crazy. but you guys seem to have found like a nice little way that just works for you, that sort of works for the brand. I think it's just all like it all comes around to this, like all of it just makes sense, and it's all just super on brand for everything you do. It's just great, very cool, man. It's cool to hear you guys say it, and I feel like it's echoing things I already felt but never verbalized, that I felt it and didn't realize. I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's very kind of you guys. I'm glad that it's hitting you that way, because that's what we want. And if it lands where you want it to be, even in the you never really even know how you want it to land.
Yeah.
It's like this nebulous thing of going like, we're gonna make this thing, we're gonna make it the way we want it, and then hopefully people are gonna enjoy it, and that can mean many things. But like the fact that there's some sort of like connection between the nebulous way that I feel about it and the nebulous way that you feel about it means that we're going in the right direction, which feels amazing. It's like, it's very, I appreciate that. I also need to say, like, I really do love the way, like, I may be able to describe, the Son and Hills beers as like very beautiful and elegant, but I also think like, Third Moon and them, they're making also like these very beautiful, like, loud beers that are decadent as hell, and they're joyful, and like I love that too. I think it's so great.
Like you said, it's probably one of the best times to be a beer drinker in this province. I just feel like there's such a breadth of just fantastic options in all directions. Like, just like you were saying.
A person you would probably love talking to is Mark Horsley at Barrel Heart. That guy.
I've had him on.
Oh, you have?
When he was at Bench, and I was texting him the other day because I know he's at Barrel Heart and he's opened up the place in Ancaster here, and I wanted to come say g'day and check out the new spot. And I love also he's from Brisbane, so he's an Aussie. So Mark is a champion. You're
Countryman,
right. Yes, exactly. So like, I met him a few years ago because Bench were one of our clients early on, actually, before they opened. So we sort of helped them with their social side of things before they opened. So I got to know Mark a little bit and everything, and he's a great. I'll let you finish with that, but yes, great dude, and he's on that full other sort of the beautiful beer side. That was really his jam. Was that sort of the funk side? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's great at like the way he lives it, the way he thinks about beer and stuff is really fun. I like the way that guy does his thing. Is very much his thing. There was a Thomas, our head brewer, went out to help him one day. He was moving a bunch of his barrels from Reverend's Barrel Works where they were. And he said, like, the most Mark thing happened ever, where they're moving all these barrels onto like a transport truck, and Mark goes to like the guy who's driving the truck, who's just like seeing the barrels get loaded on. And he goes like, so like you're gonna drive delicately, right? Because like there's a pellicle and you don't want to disturb the pellicle. And the guy's just like looking at him like he's from a fucking another planet. He's asking him not to fuck with the pellicle. That shit is hilarious.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like it's a whole thing.
Oh, last Mark.
Anyway, I gotta let me duck out of here for 2 seconds. You three keep it up.
Okay, no problem. That's the point of having all of us. So no, then let's pick up on the story, because I know we just grab the beer, then we always go on tangents. This is how it goes, Brent. We just go on tangents for a bit, and you come back to the story eventually. So, you guys, once you had sort of the calls with Sean, and you know everything was sort of going. What year was that, by the way?
That'd be 2016. So doors opened 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why Hamilton? Was that home, and you guys just wanted to?
It was kind of so at the time Ram and I were both living in Niagara, but yeah, both had a lot of love for Hamilton, having lived nearby and visited a bunch leading up to the time that we decided to put the brewery there. But there was also a huge void in the market in Hamilton at the time. There was like Collective Arts was getting off the ground. We found out as we were building the brewery that Merit was coming along, and Clifford was being built at the time. But there was not much shed in Dundas, or Sean and Ed, I think they're called now. But there's one or two breweries basically in such a large city that's at the crux of Niagara and Toronto, that whole like Golden Horseshoe area, and so much population. And we thought that if we could find a building in the right area in Hamilton, that would be a great place to start. And yeah, we did some building shopping there, and eventually found something. You guys have been to the brewery. It was a bigger building than we were comfortable kind of signing a lease to at the beginning. But to circle back to Sean Hoyne, who has that brewery out west, he had so much success so fast with his brewery that he started with a little building in a kind of like an industrial park, and he had to keep sort of like asking his neighbors to move out and take over the next space and knock out the wall and take over the next space. And he's so telling us from day one, oh, you want a big building? Oh, wow, look how cheap per square foot real estate is to lease in Hamilton. And, oh yeah, you're going to want this and you're going to want that. And so we signed on to something that, it was a little bit stressful at the time, given the context of the stories we've already told about our personal lives and financial situations at the time. But we made it work, and we were lucky to find this sort of like unicorn type building in a zoning that is industrial, but in a high quality, high density residential neighborhood where there's not really much in the way of industrial. There's a factory nearby, and then there's a funeral home, and then there's Grade and Grit, another brewery, and apart from that, it's all residences all around. So we got really lucky with that. And so I mean, why Hamilton? It just seemed like there was so much opportunity there, and especially for a brewery at the time. And we ended up opening kind of like on the exact same timeline as Merit, within a week of each other. And we didn't know that they were doing that, and they didn't know that we were doing that. And there were a lot of funny coincidences there, the overlap we had with Merit in that regard.
That's very cool. Do you guys still think, because one thing, and now I'm here, like it kind of feels like Hamilton is still, even with probably 6, 7 breweries here, maybe? It feels still like the brewery, community is underserved still. Like it could be. There's a lot of room for growth, I guess is what I'm saying. If you look at Toronto or like Ottawa, anywhere else, like Hamilton's the 3rd biggest city in Ontario. I learned when we were moving here. I looked that shit up. I'm like, all right, cool. And being that there's that many breweries here, I'm just like, well, if it's a 3rd biggest city, there's like 6 breweries, 7 breweries. Like, there's a lot of room. So it's pretty dope that you guys were one of the earlier ones. Like probably in like 3rd, 4th, if you sort of opening the same time as Merit there. Do you guys see a lot of potential still in the area? Because for me, it feels like it's just scratching the surface.
It's hard to say. I think like in terms of sort of density of where the breweries are located, us and Grade and Grit and Sean and Ed is right around the corner. So that's 3 breweries in a pretty tight geographical area. And then just up the hill in Ancaster, you have Brewers Blackbird, and now Barrel Heart is up that way as well. So I guess, we're at 7 maybe with the addition of Mark's new brewery there. But then Clifford is in a different area of the city. Meriden is in a different area, being downtown. There's nothing on the mountain. So like that's an area of opportunity maybe where a lot of people live up there. But so much of it comes down to like this really boring kind of issue of zoning, of where are you allowed to do this? And then when you find out where you're allowed to do it, is that a place where you want to open up? And the answer is not always yes when you figure out where the zoning is appropriate, which again is like us and Grain and Grit, I think we're super fortunate to be in the neighborhood that we're in, because it doesn't strike you as industrial when you walk down the street or down the rail trail there.
No, not at all. And it's
Not at all.
right next to residential too, like literally right next to it. It depends which way you go out. If you keep going out that off-field road or whatever, it's like whatever, 50 meters is houses right there. So
yeah, it's just far enough that we can kind of blast the patio speakers as loud as we want.
Very convenient indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like so that was kind of like an off-topic question. I was just curious the way you guys thought about that, because that was just something I've been thinking about here. Like I felt like there's not that many in comparison, but you're right, it depends on the zone, and that makes sense. So then 2017, you guys opened. Do you remember the beers that you opened with?
Yeah, well, yeah. So back to just like Merit again. I remember the day that we found out that there was another brewery that was on almost the exact same trajectory of opening day as us, and we got invited to go down and meet Tage and Spinny down there, and we thought we were doing all this like novel stuff with our decor and doing this like burnt wood aesthetic and stuff when we got down there, and like, oh, they did that, and like, oh, what's your first beer? Like, we're brewing a grisette. They're like, oh yeah, a grisette, and they're like, oh shit, and they're just all these different examples of them doing stuff, but like 1 week ahead of us, and it was I don't know, a really funny coincidence. Sorry, what was the question? I got really off track there.
No, that's actually really good to know. Do you remember the beers that you guys opened with? So I guess obviously.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so grisette, and then that was the very first one, and then we did a pale ale. Was our second brew, and beyond that, Ram probably remembers better than me.
What
Nope.
a fucking
No,
night.
Saison America was one, I think. Back when we thought
did.
like, oh, we're buying a whole bale of whole leaf hops. That sounds like a great idea. Nobody does that.
Yeah, we did grisette. That's the first beer we ever made, and from that we went. So it was like we had two yeast strains, right? We had Cali and we had Old World Saison from Escarpment. So with those, we made grisette was the first one because I wanted to like really ease it in to a low ABV, kind of like yeast starter sort of beer. So that's what we did, and then we took the Cali and we brewed a like sort of Sierra Nevada style like American pale ale, which is even by then was a little bit dated, but we liked it. And then that next the grisette got pitched into a dry hop saison, which we had a bunch of whole leaf citra. So we dry hopped the saison with the citra. That was called Saison America, and then that pale ale pitch got turned into an IPA that again we talked about. Ultimately, some version of it turned into high grade, and Silky, our porter, which has really never changed. That has been kind of the same since early days. And then we did have a kettle sour, which to me was like quite bold because I had never made a sour beer before. I did in like a cooler when we were in school one time. It didn't go well, but I figured like I think we get this. It's not that complicated. And so we made this dry hop kettle sour, and that must be all of them. I think that was it. Like, yeah, pale ale, IPA, saison, grisette, porter, dry hop sour.
I'm struggling to remember a little bit because we didn't have our retail store license when we opened, so we just had draft beer. Right. But yeah, we didn't name the beers really, apart from maybe Silky had a name, but it was like Pac NW, like Pacific Northwest IPA, which probably was a predecessor to High Grade. Again, very different now. That grisette and Swoon was one we did not long after that, in that with that saison strain, but probably not opening day. That was a couple weeks down the line. Yeah.
How did the local market take to those farmhouse beers, being that they're probably not the most common thing?
Yeah, no,
Not very
it didn't go.
Yeah.
You may be able to deduce that from the fact that we don't really make them anymore. And yeah, it was a thing that we really liked, and you can brew beers that you like till the cows come home, but you do have to have that sort of Venn diagram where other people like them as well. Otherwise, they don't sell. And we just found that, yeah, I don't know. We thought we were making really good examples of those styles, and I still think that, but I just don't know if they were to the tastes of our local market, and so
Mm.
that was something that was a bit of a hard pill to swallow at first, and we had to move away from the Belgian stuff. And we still, once in a while, we'll bring them back. We've got a Belgian sour on right now, but it just didn't seem like something that consumers in our neck of the woods really wanted at the time.
Makes sense.
And
And
it
I
also
think
didn't
you've.
help that we didn't. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Ram.
I was just gonna say it didn't help that we didn't have, like, you can sort of get away with that stuff and get people to like it the way they should like it if you have some credibility in the industry and whatever, and like people are gonna trust you. But we didn't have that. We were like neophytes to the industry. We you know had barely had jobs at places that didn't have much of a presence in the industry. We didn't know people. There was no hype. There's nothing like that. So people didn't trust us. And so
Yeah,
like, I really like this beer. Um, they're gonna go like, well, I don't, and like I don't immediately like it. Whereas sometimes you go like, well, your palate needs a little adjusting. But who am I to say that? I'm not in a position of trust with you. So
yeah,
that's
and we opened with we had 10 taps, but I think we only had 4 beers on, and 2 of them were Belgian, and yeah, we didn't have a lager, so we didn't have nearly the diversity of brands that we like to have on now, where it's just like, oh, you have 4 beers and half of them are Belgian, and like, I don't like Belgian stuff, and so it was kind of like, oh, yeah, go somewhere else. Then was like the was all we could really say. We didn't say that.
a pseudo.
What's that?
I said half the people don't even know what Belgium is. It's like a pseudo country. Like, what do you say? Like Belgian beers? They don't know that. What is Belgian beer?
Yeah.
Sorry, you
Yeah,
cut
it's
out that
fun.
pseudo country.
It's funny that it's funny the way that like styles like go in and out at certain periods of time. I mean, we were talking to Block 3 just a few weeks ago about how their whole journey with having King Street Saison as their flagship. They're coming up now on their on their 10-year anniversary, and their market is also a little bit different than than you guys being in a bit of a touristy zone. Anyway, but I know you had Grisette re-released pretty recently. So I guess, and Rom, you kind of already alluded to this, but I guess you guys feel like you have a bit more room to play with those kind of styles now, to mix them into the lineup here and there.
Mm.
Yeah, we can do it a little bit more now. I'm part of like making beers like that is all like, we're a little bit better at like, what are you gonna do with this, like that yeast, that is right. So you go like,
Mm-hmm.
we've got this really impressive fun yeast, like I would like to rejuvenate our barrel program by making beers that have an interesting phenol profile. And I'd also like to, along the way, make a grisette, because I think it's a beautiful style of beer. And then maybe we'll make something else. In this case, like, we've got a kettle sour beer that's fermented with that really expressive Belgian yeast and dry hop and stuff, and it layers flavor in a really interesting way. And that'll be the end of the line for that. So like this yeast, maybe we'll get 3, green I love, that's right. We'll get a couple of batches out of this thing, and other than that, like it's going to be what it is. We don't have to marry it. It's just like we want to make a handful of these beers. We know how to manage this strain for as long as we want to. We call up any of our friends and see if anybody has some use for it, and if not, then just like let it be.
It makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
Just noting the time, we should probably crack beer number 4 before Brent has to jet.
Yes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Brent, the other one that you had was
Thirst World.
let's do that.
Yeah, sure.
Love it. Love to hear it. So now we're moving into double IPA land, which is a wonderful place to be. This one is a double IPA with dry hop of Moteca and Sabro, which is dope.
There's Moteca back in there again.
Look at that. What a fantastic hop. And Sabro is the old love it or hate it type shit. But I'm in the love it department for Sabro. I think it's fantastic. Can you guys speak to this one at all for us? Let us know what's going on.
Yeah. So that idea of like thirst world being like, thirst world problems, first world problems. We have a shit ton of Motueka and Sabro, and like what a problem to have. So we decided like we're gonna plow a double IPA with things, because nothing like, especially like this came out after we had done Pillow Talk, and you could see that like that Fruit Loopy limey thing kind of peeking out, and to me nothing like emphasizes the like over the top kind of candy character of hops like Sabro does. It underpins this like tropical quality with that coconut sorbet kind of thing, and so it's hard. I know what you mean with the like love-hate thing. It's all good. I don't know, to some extent, like it feels, I don't know. I like it. I feel, yeah, I feel like it's like objectively likable, but
people say it tastes like soap or something. I think that's the problem. I think it's like, what's that other shit? It's got 2 names. It's cilantro. Cilantro can taste like soap to some people, and I think it's that same concept where some people's taste buds are affected by Sabro in the same way. So I agree with you. I think if you don't like it,
I feel like it's just that the coconut thing can sometimes go in a sunscreen direction.
That's the one. That's what people say.
Like it's kind of how some people describe it.
Which is
for sure.
I could understand that being objectionable. Like, what a cool thing though that
cheers.
You can get a hop that's so coconutty that it borders on like coconut sunscreen. Who would have thought?
Yeah. I feel like it's like almost like, oh man, it sucks for you that your fucking taste buds are doing that to you, because certainly does not happen to me. Yeah, it seems very unfortunate, because I think Sabro is incredible, but devil, whatever, to be fair, like I can see it going that way. I can see what they're talking about. It's just, I guess, the 4 of us it's not happening to. Because it's like the dislike seems like visceral for people who don't like it, and I just imagine it's just some sort of like poor reaction from the chemicals of the hop to their taste buds. But I also hear that Sabro is I imagine the Moteca is the dominant hop, and the Sabro is significantly under as far as the percentage wise. I've heard that makes a difference.
I as a general rule of thumb would say like play down the Sabro, let it live in the background. I think that this is 50-50.
Interesting. I could probably get that. The coconut's pretty heavy in this bad boy,
It
which
is,
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
which is
But
which
I mean,
I
it was all coconut. Fuck out of here.
yeah, who doesn't like coconut? Is beautiful. It's such a great hop, and it's like it works well with the Moteca. Like it's kind of like a pina colada. Obviously, that's automatically what you think of with this, but I feel like there's like it's not pina colada automatically because Sabro's in there. It's like depends what else is around it. But I feel like I'm
Yeah,
getting a
if
bit
you've
of
got a like if you've got another hop in there that is giving off any kind of pineapple vibe, like mix it with Sabro and you're gonna go straight to pina colada.
yeah. I don't think it's a
And
bad thing at all.
we make this beer called Listenerland, and we also have the good fortune of living across the street from like one of the larger candy factories in
I
North
smelled
America.
that today, bro. I was walking from the car and I was like, "What the fuck smells so good?" And I didn't realize. I meant to ask when you guys were describing the neighborhood. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. That was delicious today. Okay.
No, it's so good. It's lovely. These guys are wild, dude. They got like giant tanker trucks full of high fructose corn syrup lined up 24/7 around the block, just getting hosed out. It's crazy how much candy they make over there. But you smell the whole neighborhood smells
Yeah.
like whatever they're making, and you can identify. You go like some days. I'll go like they're making those watermelon slices. Like I know it. I know that they're doing that over there.
Yeah, it's a
And
Oh, that's
gummy fat.
wild.
Is it actually high
It's-
fructose corn syrup, or is it just some other little sticking agent?
could be medium fructose corn syrup. I don't know. It's sugar for sure.
Great answer. Great
I
answer.
think it is because that's just like the that's the
standard.
easiest way to like have liquefied sugar, and it's very cheap. I think that is what they're full of. But yeah, it's specifically a gummy factory, so they're just mixing that with some color basically and pouring it into molds and baking it, and that's like 1,000,000 pounds of
And
candy a day or something like that.
yeah, and the beauty of it is like we're on the absolute right side of them because you can't apparently run a candy factory that size without lighting it on fire like every week or two. And so
Whoa.
they come out and it's the middle of the winter and they're all cold and stuff. So we bring them into the brewery. And next thing you know, there's like 300 candy makers in the brewery kind of huddled in their little towels until the brewery gets turned off of the fire that they've created. And
Jeez.
and then every time they bring us big bags of candy as like gratitude. And so
Good.
like yeah, we got diabetes over here. But all that to say, um, we make this beer called Listenerland, and they bring us these tropical Sour Patch Kids that have that like little bit of coconut flavor in them and stuff. And I swear to God, like when that stuff is fresh, like it is full tropical Sour Patch Kids. It is the most delicious thing. It again makes me like giddy, like these like lactosey fruity beers do, because like, are you telling me that this just comes from like weird green flowers? That's what's making it taste this way is like this plant material. It's bizarre. So
Do you
it's
put?
pretty incredible with this beer that you can make these flavors out of like what is essentially a weed.
That's a great point. I mean, do you actually put the candy in the beer?
I would, but too busy eating it.
Yeah.
That's the best excuse I've ever heard. Like I can't see.
It's food.
You know what, man? You'd be crazy not to just be eating that shit. That sounds amazing. I think you dropped that. That sounds very familiar. I think that was a pretty recent one you did, if I'm not mistaken, the last month or two.
When did we last have that, Brent? I think maybe.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've done it a couple times now. It's been a few months for sure. When we initially did it, the reason it's called Listenerland is we had a bunch of different DJs kind of curate and put together a playlist for like patio season. It was during the pandemic, I think, the first time we did it, and we had that all online. You could watch the DJ sets. Yeah, but no, it's been a few months.
Yeah, more recently we made Radar Love, which is kind of like the big like the big cousin of Listenerland,
Gotcha.
which is like the double IPA version of the same beer. We called it Radar Love, and so maybe that's where he kind of heard of it more recently.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Okay, that's pretty dope though. Once again, collaborating locally, neighbors. It's very cool. I love that shit. And this is fantastic, by the way. This is like super bold, tons of coconut, sticky, dank, citrusy, like that key lime vibe in it. Great body. It's fantastic. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to it, but this is great.
I mean, I think we've like talked about Sabro a lot, but like the one thing that is like undeniable about this particular hops, whether it's like Sabro, I really like Sriracha Ace. I know it's another divisive one.
Can go with like the onion one, I think, right? It can go oniony if you don't use it right.
Dilly, Mad Dill.
Yeah.
But I think also like Nelson and stuff like that. They have these qualities that are like you can never mistake them for just any old hop, right?
They're super
because there's a lot
distinctive.
of hop. Yeah, there's a lot of hop profiles out there that require a certain amount of like sophistication on the palate to figure out what it is. But in this case, like these, like no, I'm a complete left turn from that. Like this is something you haven't had before. We all have because we live in this bubble, right? But for your average person who goes like, oh, IPA, and you go like, what the fuck? Why does this taste like wild coconutty? Like you go like, oh, that's the weed that we put in it. This random plant.
It just happens to make it taste like coconut.
Or or if it's like a heavy Nelson one, like why does this taste like white wine grape kind of thing?
Yeah.
Same concept. Yeah, I can imagine this. I mean, you guys, I was saying to Ram today that like it feels like to me that you guys are sort of straddling the middle ground of sort of like, the gateway people because it's so local, friendly, approachable with the big mix of beers. And then you've also got the big nerdy stuff for guys, people like us who are sort of a little more into it. People must kind of like trip out when you like, they want to try something new and you're like, here, have this. Tell me what you taste. And they just lose their shit. Like, why does it taste like coconut? Like, it's a kind of a fun one, I think, for people to kind of really showcase what hops can do. Because when people always have that misconception that hops are bitter and tongue stripping and blah, 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 like the old school thing that a lot of people are hung up on still. Now it's like, well, it's this big fruity tropical bomb and shit tastes like coconut. Or sunscreen, but mostly coconut. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think like going back to Pillow Talk that we had earlier, still that thing about Fruit Loops, like every time we make it, I always like, which it's only been 3 times maybe, but it's like, is that Fruit Loop thing going to come back, or is that was that in our imagination? But it's there enough times. It's like, no, this is a characteristic of this hop that like we all at the brewery kind of go like, that's weird. It's like whatever that combination of like fake fruits in in Fruit Loops is, that hop is doing something that gives us that same kind of aroma in our minds. And I think that's so interesting. And it really comes through in a delicate beer like a Pilsner. But yeah, the things that you can do with different hops, it's always an adventure. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is, man. I love that. Now, I'm just being cautious of the time, Brent. I know you have to go. I want to grab the thumbnail and take a screenshot. So just before, to make sure that you're in it for the thumbnail, do you want to just hold up some cans and stuff so we can just get that before you have to depart?
Sure.
So which one am I going to do? Okay, this one. Yes. Ooh, Nate's got all 4 there. Okay, I like the vibes. Beautiful. Got it. Boom. So Brett, we can keep chatting, and you can just jet off as need be. But yeah, man, this is fantastic. I feel like I haven't had as many double IPAs from you guys, but you guys do kind of pump out a few double IPAs, eh? Like you guys are really like
More and more, yeah. And um, yeah, I heard you guys talking about on a previous episode about double high grade. I think that's around the corner again too. So I think that was you.
I love to hear that. I'm a big fan of that one.
yes, that one was really good. What about? I know Nate mentioned earlier, and one of our big fave. We really love West Coast IPAs, and I feel like that West Coast IPAs are not they're not really popular really anywhere anymore, except sort of out west, maybe back at Sean's Brewery and stuff. But out here, Nate and I did an episode a month or two back about West Coast, and there's a few regularly accessible ones here, and very few. I don't know if you want to call them seasonals or one-offs or whatever. California King was one that Nate, I didn't grab it to begin with, and Nate was like, dude, you need to fucking go and get California King. So made sure I came by and grabbed that.
I was on his ass for that one.
Yeah, and it was absolutely valid, and it was very, very worth it. Would there be a double of something like that to kind of ramp it up? And, you know what I'm saying? And do a little...
You want a job? That's yeah. Half the battle is trying to figure out what we're gonna make next. That's
good.
That's a good idea.
Maybe we could do that as a collab. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. California King, just the one that is gonna make an appearance again soon, I think too. I do have to go though, like you said. Thank you for letting me go, and this has been awesome. We should all grab a beer sometime in real life.
Yeah, man, I'd love to do that.
Absolutely.
Great to connect, brother. Do your thing. Thank you for your time and for hanging out. And yeah, we'll keep in touch and we'll figure something out, because I'm around the corner and Nate's in town relatively regularly as well, so we'll be able to figure something out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Take care, guys.
All right, brother.
Thanks a lot, Brent. We'll talk soon.
All right, bye.
Cheers, man. Double California King, though. I'm liking the idea of that, boys. You know.
Double
drink that
California.
now.
Yeah, man. Well, they like the double IPAs have such a fullness to them.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I guess you just got to squeeze more malt into less liquid, and like that's just the way that goes. Makes you think about how every beer should. It's tough. You want that to be in kind of every beer, but you can't replicate it by whatever it is, maltodextrin or whatever. It just doesn't work. Just all that into a small amount of beer is incredible, and that you want small beers to taste like that, but they can't. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is, but I don't know how to do it.
I don't think so. I think if it was possible, brewers continually do double versions of existing brands, which it's become a thing. I'm seeing it more and more often across the board in multiple places and stuff. And and they do that because there is a difference. Like, I don't think there's something you're missing. I think it's just, if you've got a brand, something like California King, you can do a double version. Or you got high grade, you do double high grade. It's, basically ramping up a brand. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't too. There's that other thing, because sometimes there's something about that original that's special that when you, maybe it's a double, that's the original, and then you try and do it the opposite way and bring it down to a single. It might not connect either. There might be some sort of magic in there, but often it can sort of be replicated. I don't know. I kind of find that interesting because it comes back to one of the original conversations we were having this evening about the taking care of a brand like High Grade that is so well known and so beloved, whether it's here in Hamilton or across the province. Taking that and making it double is such a dope idea. It's perfect because it's a known brand and it's a slight twist on a known brand that's still keeping it within the scope of what makes it what it is, whilst just sort of a little bit of a punch. You know what I'm saying? You could probably even do the opposite, make it a pale ale, drop it down to 4.5 or something, and do that version of it. there's nothing stopping that, like, and I imagine a brand
Yeah,
like
I mean, Cat did that. Did that with Space Juice when they like when they dropped Space Light.
yeah, there you go. I know that Bell has been doing that with Double Jutsu. They did that Rap Club series where they did like the Pale Ale version, and they've done up to a quad version now. They've kind of taken it a little crazy, which is the furthest I've seen anyone take a brand to do 4 versions of the same beer.
No, I think Third Moon with Bone Tree. They've now done done
Quintuple.
quintuple.
You are correct. You are correct. I mean, look, I think that's sort of. It's just extending. If you think about it, it's extending a brand. Really, is what they're doing. Extending a brand and giving consumers some a little like different of the same thing that they already know and love, which you guys are already doing with high grade. So I mean, like something like California King, which is that probably your primary West Coast that you sort of intermittently bring back?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that we made a couple of those styles of beer like back in the day, but Cali King was one of those ones that like, again, you're always trying stuff. And when we made that beer and all of a sudden could like taste it and see it, and again, like I don't want to overly romanticize things, but like all of that stuff is pulled like kind of from experience, like when I was a kid, my brother lived in California and my family would go and try to like spend time visiting him, and we lived in a van and did the whole thing and did the California thing in the 90s and spent a lot of time in the sequoias and like cruising around and like in Morro Bay and the PCH, and that shit all meant the world to me. It's stuck in my brain. um and so when the art is the way that it is and the beer is the way that it is, and like back in the day, the beer had no effect on my life until all of a sudden, the early beers for me that sort of like made me really interested in it was Sierra Nevada and stuff from out west. And it's just such an iconic place that to some extent, like, my interest in it trend like sort of leaves the beer behind sometimes. Like, you want the beer to be wonderful and all that, but it's like I want it to be like this weird little like it's a very niche way of paying homage to like a place and time and experience that just kind of like means the world to me. um I love the beer, but I love the place. It's like I love all that stuff. It just means the world to me. And to see it the way that it is, like I just want to keep it,
Yeah. Would
That's
you
really
ever?
cool, man.
It's super cool. I mean, I guess it's even cooler, right? That it's like some strong personal connection. Would you guys ever do like like I don't know if variance is the right word, but like just other West Coast, or is that not really as much of a thing out here?
Oh, I think it's increasingly a thing. Yeah, I mean, I think we would definitely do other West Coast beers. Like, in fact, I have like, you know, even just like branding ideas and recipe ideas for those beers that I want to see, and we will. It's just absolutely like that. The hazy IPAs and all that stuff are truly wonderful. That has been like a uh, revolution in beer. That's what that was.
Yeah,
But it doesn't negate how wonderful, uh, malty, snappy, bitter IPAs are. Those
facts.
Oh,
fucking are.
never.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
good,
those
bro.
are completely different. They're like, it's like saying, because you made a because maybe wit beer is hot, like would you never make a hefeweizen or whatever. There's just the completely different things, and they stand on their own
Mm.
merit. And I love them both. I actually don't like hefeweizen, but it just seems like
I'm not a big fan
this
either.
is live.
Hey, it's okay. Like they were cool back in the day. Maybe not now. But I feel you, man.
Well, I'm sure somebody could change my mind. I just haven't had one that I liked in a long time.
I actually had a question. Nate, have you had the Sankiem Hefeweizen?
I have, yes.
What do you think? Is that like one that would convince people? Because I haven't had a Hefe in a hot minute.
I mean, will it convince people? I don't know if I'd say that. It's a very good Hefeweizen. Like if you don't like Hefeweizen, I don't know if it's going to change your mind.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I feel it. Yeah.
Almost anything that's properly good and well made by somebody who has a thoughtful palate is going to be good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to redact my I don't like Hefeweizen thing. I think there's probably lots of good.
I would
plan to
mind
go to Germany.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. My buddy Alex, who used to be the head brewer over at Grain and Grit, is from Germany, and he's the man. He's just like the loveliest guy. I keep meaning to. He and I keep trying to get a trip to Germany going, but I also have a young family, so I have to either choose to bring them or abandon them, and both are difficult.
Yeah. I can see that because it's hard, dragging young kids around Bavaria.
Yeah.
To go, hey, we're going to Poland now, guys. Shut up. We're going to Erdinger. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, shut up. We're going to Poland.
Yeah, it's like, this is what's happening. We're going to Pilsen. All right, relax. Yeah, I feel you, man. It's a lot. But yeah, all the traditional styles are super cool. I mean, look, even you guys are definitely like really like seem to be having multiple crispy boys. Even with what was the one you had a Schwartz beer recently? Was it Black Forest?
Yeah,
fantastic. And obviously the other crispy. You guys really lean into the crispies, so which is very cool.
I love that.
Well, we've been trying to. We had a tank expansion a couple of years ago, 2 years ago maybe, and that allowed us to do that.
Love that.
But with regard to Black Forest, I gotta give it up. That's like the only beer that I haven't had. I haven't been up to my elbows in this place. That was like completely Zach and Ryan and Thomas in the back making that beer. They made all the decisions. Maya made the label. I think I called it Black Forest, and that actually didn't work out well because Cameron's has a beer called Black Forest. So the only thing that I did do, I fucked it up. But yeah, very good.
I actually kind of like it because obviously Black Forest, you think of the cake and you expect this fruity stuff, but I don't know, there's something about Black Forest that almost suggests like that sort of piney woodiness that you would sort of anticipate, even though like I guess a Schwartz beer is
to a certain level, but I could see people expecting there to be cherries in it.
Especially coming from us. Yeah, you
That's
would think
true.
there's some other in it, right?
Speaking of that, do we want to keep cruising? Because we've got two other beers and we've got a crispy and a light bad boy. What do you guys think?
Well, if we're getting through them, then we should get through them.
I'm Ubering home now, so like I'd be happy to, I don't know, muck a Donna or something, and
let's do it. I'm not scared. Donna.
Yeah, I'm already this far into the thing, so
it's like, yeah, when you come this far, you kind of just like, what are you gonna do?
Well, and I had with the McMaster fermentation club before I came here because I did a brewery tour. And
how was that?
It was good. I thought I kind of wore out all my good material, and I was like, well, you guys are gonna get ready for a snooze fest because my throat hurts, and I've been talking shit about beer in this brewery for like hours already. But,
well, you're doing great.
Oh, I appreciate it.
You are doing great. So Donna is a this is definitely a fave, like a Europe, Pilsner style lager, European hops. You know, this is just this is the one that you guys typically have on Luca, as I was mentioning earlier at the brewery. Been a fan of this one for a bit.
At the risk of making you uncomfortable from boosting it too much there, Rom, like I've gone on record before, and I'm happy to do so again, that I think this is one of the best regularly available pilsners in Ontario.
Well,
Yeah, I said that.
If this is, discomfort, I welcome it. No, that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, it's a simple beer.
That's the beauty of it, man. I don't think these beers need to be anything more than simple, and that's the point. Like, they're not. And the thing is about this, and I would argue, sorry to if I cut you off there, I feel like it's like this beer is not trying to be anything aside from what it is, and I think that's the beauty of the beer. It's and the fact that you guys are confident enough in the beer as well to put it on Luca, I think says a lot about the end product there, because it's I don't think that's anything to play around with there. If you're putting a beer on Luca, you're like, all right, this is some serious stuff. You need to try it in that format. It's very serious, and it's cool because even just different to Pillow Talk, which is a dry hop, which is arguably like a newer style, I guess, of beer, whereas this is just a straight up and down, pills with nothing else happening, no other frills.
What would you prefer to drink? Would you on a day when you're,
That's a great question.
We're out wherever, like, what are you gonna grab? You like Pillow Talk or you like Donna? What do you in a binary universe where you just gonna grab a beer?
I have such an interesting question you to ask that about these two beers.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear Nate's answer too, but like, see, my innovation side, which is coming into like the Fonso and all the fun lactose ridiculous beers that pastries and blah blah blah, that would lean towards the dry hop version, the Pillow Talk. Then I have this. I've grown. I don't even know when or what the fuck happened to me, but like something happened where I'm just like fell in love with craft pilsners, lagers, and all that thing, and in the truest traditional style, which includes things like the Schwarzbier, just a proper traditional porter, things like that, like just traditional shit that I before wasn't super interested. Yes, I know we're gonna cheers, so we can actually drink. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, keep talking.
Like without being like lazy, I love them kind of equally. I'd almost like both, like to be I don't know if that's okay to say that, but like I would almost like to be like, well, if I go into the brewery and like I said, when me and Nate were hanging out and we saw the Luca tap, I was like, oh fuck, and we asked the bartender, I'm like, hey, is that what's on that's a Luca tap? Yeah, they're like, yeah, that's Donna. I'm like, fuck. Oh man. And it was just like we'd already sort of like basically wrapped up our drinking that day, so it was like we kind of missed the boat with it. So that's exciting to me, but at the same token, I'd almost kind of like do one of each because they are very different. They're very similar whilst being very different. Is that lazy? Is that a lazy answer? Do I have to choose gun to head?
A little lazy.
It's a bit lazy. Okay, gun
All
to
right.
head. Maybe I'd probably choose Pillow Talk because it's the best of both worlds. There you go. Best
There
of
you
the
go.
innovation, the fun stuff where you've done something different to it, whilst also the base being a completely traditional, like, exactly what it's supposed to be, and the people who get mad at the lactose stuff would be in love with Donna for all of those reasons. What would you both say? I'd love to hear what you both would say for that.
Rom, you go first.
No.
Okay, fair enough. All right,
That's
fair
amazing.
enough. Yeah, so like similarly, there are different worlds in which I prefer both, but I'm going to answer the question in the spirit that it was asked. like my cheating my cheating C answer would would have been I also like both like around this time of year. I probably I probably would have said Pillow Talk, whereas in the middle of summer I might have said Donna. But like as I said, I'm going to answer the question in the spirit that it was asked. Um, Gun to my head, if I had to pick one in kind of a universe where like all things being equal, which one am I going to choose? For me, I think it's Donna. Uh, like having had good German style pills, like whether it's on regular
So
draft
good.
right from the can, or on Lucre, it just doesn't get any better than that. So yeah, and it's good all year round. It's it's just so crisp. It's it just makes me happy every single time I drink it. So yeah, I'm saying Donna.
I like that. Now it's on you, Ram.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm inclined to go like they're uh they're both very like they're such crushable beers that you go like
Mm.
if you want to I always say like it's as easy to crush them like it's easy to contemplate them as it is to crush them. And that's fun. And but I do drink Donna more, but quite often I go like, why am I not drinking Pillow Talk when it's around or whatever? You
Mm.
know, like having that like sitting around, it's such a uh it's such a delicate, like lovely little experience. And it's so like fragrant and I don't know, like I don't want to sound too corny, but it's like kind of enchanting that
Mm.
Pillow Talk. Um, but
That's fair.
Donna is a go-to, and that's what I drink most of the time, and so that's probably it. But that Pillow Talk plays with me, so like I yeah I like that beer a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely special.
It's
And
a really fucking good beer.
yeah, it's almost like there's different situations and it sort of depends. It's almost like, yeah, it's because I can always, there's such circumstances for both. And like, it's like,
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a case of I don't want to have to choose.
there you go. That's the best answer. And also, the easiest answer is if you go to the brewery and Donna's on Luca and Pillow Talk is not on Luca, then the answer is Donna. That's really what it comes down to.
That's another interesting thing because like why aren't they all on taps like that?
Great question.
Good
I mean,
question.
some people have argued the cost of the taps, and I don't know what a regular tap costs versus a Luca. It doesn't seem obscenely more expensive, but it's more
It's
expensive.
no, but it's definitely more expensive. You would say if a regular faucet costs $100 or $150, a lucre costs or actually you know what to be fair because we keep saying this word that's not a lucre faucet out front.
Okay.
That it's a it's an American side pull, which doesn't
Mm,
have the filter the screen in it that a lucre tap does.
Okay.
Um, it's a
okay.
ball. It's a ball valve in a stainless steel casing, and it creates really fine foam when you want to. It has incredible range as opposed to the kind of like on-off sputtering that your standard uh, just like faucet has. But um, while I we don't have lucre faucets because they'll stick out fucking like a foot into the thing and we can't fit them. But when I do see people who have them, they tend to have a little bit of trouble with it. Um, I see, and I think maybe it's just because people aren't necessarily always using them correctly. But or maybe it's a volume thing or whatever. But I sometimes see those Luger taps and I go like, not because I know how to use them, because I don't. It's I see other people using them and I go like, you guys are struggling. Whereas like this like ball valve seems like the best of both worlds. It's like an incredible amount of control, but it doesn't have this like screen in it that's like fucking with you. But surely there's something that is lost. I just don't know what it is. I'm not that guy.
You probably have to have them side by side or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go grab a piss, but you guys keep talking.
Yeah. Interesting. So that's good to know. That's the difference. But it's still an elevated experience compared to a regular tap, I guess, though, which is still. Would that be fair to say?
I think so. I really like those taps. What is like, like if we were just to get like commercial on it, like it's difficult to put a brand on them.
Gotcha. But if people are having that pour, and then say if Pillow Talk is on a regular tap, like there's a noticeable difference, even if it's not remarkable, but there'd be a noticeable difference between the pour on that American side pull versus a regular up down tap handle.
Again, it depends on how you use it.
Okay.
If you just use it on off, then it may as well be the on off that binary faucet.
So is it one of those ones where you gotta like let it go a little bit to produce more foam?
Yeah, absolutely. You just like let it squeeze out a little bit, and it's got this really fine. But in fact, it's a lot like drinking from a bright tank.
Okay, so it's like real fun.
Except you can get better pours from it, because drinking out of a bright tank, often you get nothing but foam.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a really interesting point. So then you could you do like those Maliko check pours with that tap?
What are you talking about?
So there's this thing called a Maliko, Mliko pour, where there's like this much beer and this much foam.
It's just all that like super wet foam. And
they're supposed to be like a shooter.
Yeah, dude, if you came here right now, we could dust a couple for sure.
Should have done that this afternoon, shouldn't we?
I was in the middle of it. I was a full spreadsheet. I looked like my shirt with values all over it.
I respect it. It wasn't the time. I hadn't even had breakfast, so it wasn't a good time for me either. But we're gonna make that happen because that's beautiful.
I'm getting stuck to this desk these days. That's like my I was like tapping my hand the other day, and my watch was like, "Great, you're active again." I was like, "Fuck,
like, God damn it, the damn desk."
Such low expectations of me. I basically stopped wearing this thing if I'm sitting around. The only time I wear my watch is if I go for a run, so it's like it's pleased with me.
The Apple Watch.
All right, so it's a Samsung watch, but it's the same thing. It's just like this,
it's like a smartwatch that does
this device that you wear on your body.
Yeah, I got one of those bad boys. Yeah, it's always interesting to get the data, you know.
Yeah.
I love it. We're just talking about the different. Yes, go.
You know, I don't often get access to guys like you who seem to be so tuned into the industry. So, like, what's your take on what? Like, a lot of people I talk to talking about like declining kind of sales, the market shifting to, low elk, non-elk, RTDs. Like, where do you guys see the craft beer industry in Ontario in 5 years?
That's a great question. Nate, do you want to answer that? I'm going to rock a piss, and then I'll come back and I'll hit you with mine, because I have some thoughts, because me and Tiff did a full podcast on this like a month ago. You good?
Great.
All right.
Yeah, sure. So I think we're definitely already seeing a shift in that, like particularly towards like towards non-elk, maybe even more than low elk. It's like something interesting that I found this year is that there are more non-alcoholic options, including non-alcoholic beer, being produced by Ontario breweries this year than I've ever seen before. Um, like I could maybe count on one hand, even in January 2022. Ontario breweries that had that had non-alcoholic beers. There are plenty that had hop waters and things like that, but non-alcoholic beers, it's skyrocketed this year. And I know it's a thing that in the last in the last 5 years or so, I know the Quebec market had been showing a slight preference, trending towards lower alcohol options. And I think Cee's monitor just dropped off there. Maybe it'll pop back on when he comes back. I know the Quebec scene had started to show a preference for that, but then they kind of skyrocketed back in the other direction with when they kind of caught up on the haze trend and and some would say even leapfrogged. But where it's going in 5 years, that's a really interesting question and very, very difficult to predict. But with how it kind of came about by leaps and bounds this year on the non-alcoholic scene, I have to imagine to a certain degree that that's going to continue, because I think the only explanation for how it exploded this year is that it's kind of catching up to that demand. I mean, dry January has become more and more of a conversation every year, especially since 2020, I think, with people just kind of wanting to keep their drinking in check after after a lot of lockdown and whatnot. So, and I mean, I don't think the fact that the non-alcoholic options exploding in January of this year is a coincidence. So, so as we continue to go along with it exploding this year, I think that's going to continue for sure. And a guess would be that lower alcohol options are going to start to become more common as well. I don't think that the higher ABV ones are going to disappear. I think I don't think hazy double IPAs are going anywhere. But I do think that better attenuated pale ales so ones that are a bit bolder in body and without kind of being as harsh in carbonation as some of the lower ABV options have been in the past. We can already see those getting dialed in more. Even the hype places like Third Moon and whatnot are really dialing in the body on their lower ABV beers, that kind of enhancing the body of their lower ABV beers and lightening up the body in their higher ABV beers, and I think that's only going to continue. That's kind of where I've seen the trends going pretty significantly, and I think that's likely to continue.
I caught the end of that, but I definitely agree with that part. Tiff and I did a podcast a few months ago where we were looking at sort of the future of craft beer and where it's going. We saw some videos on, I don't know if it was mainstream stuff, but relatively big YouTube channels were posting about this. And if you look at where the big guys were going, the big guys were turning a brewing business into a beverage business. So kind of coming back to the original question where you were saying what does it look like with the other thing? They were moving into NA, RTDs, seltzers, ciders, sparkling waters, whatever else that it might be, in order to diversify their portfolios. I think beer as a whole has been, I don't know if it's necessarily shrinking as much, but just sort of changing. And here we go. Am I back? So I was waiting for this new one to come back in. There we go. Beautiful. And the idea is that, like sort of Nate was touching on, a lot of the craft breweries have now moved into non-alc. Collective locally, Bellwoods. There's breweries. They've gone like in on it, like as in having events, doing multiple brands, focus groups, all that stuff. Then you've got someone like Rorschach who do like a one-off that they keep bringing back. Third Moon, they had their we would it was actually like a live session that we used to do called the Chinwag that we kind of stopped. And Bebo came on. And he was talking about they have their lime fizzy water that they just pour at the brewery. And we were like, "Yo, you should can that shit." And they started canning it, and now they have their little canned water line.
I feel like he kind of did that because of us a little bit.
No, I know he did it because of us, for sure. It's not like saying that
Yeah.
we are the man or anything like that. It's just he happened to tune in, and we were like, "You should put that in can." It was like just a little suggestion. It was, and they did it, and it's great. Now they got multiple flavors. Dominion City have a whole
Yep.
business with City Seltzer with this type of stuff.
Yep.
So I think
And Wellington, their hop water has become a whole side brand as well. It used to just
Correct.
be under the Wellington name, but now they've made it a whole side brand, just like Dominion have done with City Seltzer.
correct. That's a great example. So it's like, and one of the original ones was Spearhead's Aqua, which was like a botanical water. I don't know if they're still doing that, but that was actually really, really good. That
They
was
do.
the first. They do. Okay, that was the first one where we were like, "Oh shit, this is a thing. This is fun." So I think that like some breweries are not interested in it, and they kind of seem annoyed by it all, and then some breweries seem to want to kind of embrace it. So like, I think as a capitalist, business perspective, not as just a drinker, like I think breweries would be intelligent to invest into some sort of alternative beverage opportunity, whatever that may be for them. Seltzers, I don't think are going to change the world like they were. I feel like they had their kind of moment. They're there. This summer will be telling because this is my first full Ontario summer. Whereas in Quebec, they fucking love seltzers. You walk around the park in Montreal, and everybody had a 12-pack or whatever it is of different brands of the seltzers of the last couple of summers.
And when you say that, you're
That-
talking alcoholic seltzers, right?
Alcoholic seltzers, I'm sorry. Yes, correct. So there's
I
that.
think that's the same here. Like
It's the
those
same
are
here?
very popular. Yeah, and I think they'll remain very popular. When even breweries, even admittedly like us, are interested and engaged in making things that don't taste that much like beer.
Mm,
Like we talked about Fonso and stuff. I mean, you get giddy about like how much you make this thing taste like candy. Well, part of that is because it's fun to make something uh, out of constituent parts that don't make sense,
mm,
right? So like, you make a beer that tastes like candy out of something that is like not typically associated with candy. Whereas if you take, you know, uh, commodity grade, uh, high proof beverage alcohol and mix it with sterile water and CO2 and flavors, you're going to get that result. And when I put it that way, that's my own cynical way of like saying like I do it better. But the reality is like the drinking public doesn't feel that way, and they don't need to. They don't owe us anything. You go like, there's nothing wrong with these flavors or whatever. These guys are giving you what you want. So that will be a challenge for the beer industry if you see it as a challenge. Like there's also a part of this whole thing that um, while you need to grow and you need to um, continue to make money and all that stuff, um, you got to realize like for somebody in my position how wonderful is this situation that you got going here. You
mm.
need to protect it and nurture it and make sure that like I can continue to like have a job that I absolutely love with a bunch of people that I absolutely love, and that I can sustain them and stuff and sustain myself and do that whole thing. But you don't need to dominate the beverage alcohol market.
That's fair.
Growth is cool. And I would never tell people to like stay in your lane or whatever, but it's remain authentic and find ways to like uh, focus on like the joy in your own life, and like don't get too distracted by the either like the potential for you to grow or the potential for you to stagnate or fail or whatever. Give those things the respect that they deserve, but don't let them haunt you. Just focus on like the thing that, if you love beer and you love the people that you work with or whatever, just keep doing that. It's going to come across, and you're going to be able to make a perfectly fine buck. Just don't get fucked up about it. It's like everything will be okay. Just don't stress yourself out too much. Work hard. Like don't be complacent, because you are seeing a lot of attrition these days. Breweries falling off all the time, and that will continue. You don't want to be that, I don't think. Some people, I think, do. They want out, and just because a business fails doesn't mean you don't get paid. So you might just let your foot off the gas because you're at the end of your rope, and that's fine too. But for people who want this, I think like a positive future is out there. Just like focus on your values, which is if you enjoy your craft and your people and all that stuff, then like just focus on that. Enjoy going to work every day. That's what we try to do.
I feel that, man. That's really like, yeah, that's a sort of more wholesome, like straight up and down, like, do what you're doing, follow your thing. And I think that's kind of important, because some people might be moving into these other categories because they feel like they have to, but there's no passion to do that, or they don't really care to do that, and they're doing it because they feel like they should, and then they might not make the greatest product that they could of that ilk, and then it might not be doing them any favors. So it's sort of like you got to know your brand, I guess, because your original question is, where do you see everything going? And I see it moving towards that. Like Nate mentioned, like, the lower ABV beers being better bodied and more accessible because they are cheaper. They're cheaper for the breweries to make, they're cheaper to sell, and they're cheaper for the consumer. But, often you could be drinking a 6% IPA that has a similar body to an 8%, but less calories, less money, and the breweries can sell more of those as opposed to maybe less of the higher ABV stuff. And then you've got the other thing where, right now in Quebec, dry February is a big thing. I don't think it's as big here. Obviously dry January, and there's sober October. So there's months like that where maybe breweries might want to have products that can still be sold to people who are participating in that. And they're like, I go to Fairweather all the time, but I'm doing dry January, so I'd love to go and buy their sparkling water so I can drink a can of that every day and whatever. So there's that, but it's like, it's just got to make sense to you. Like, it made sense to Third Moon, good on them. It made sense to Bellwoods to do that shit, fucking good on them. Cool. But I don't think everyone has to do it. I don't think they all need to, as far as like, it's not a matter of survival. It's more like, for Dominion City creating City Seltzer and doing this whole other thing, I imagine it's just as much work to create and maintain that brand as it is the Dominion City brand. That's a lot of
sure.
Like, they've got an app, for fuck's sake. Like, that's manpower. That's like, developers and designers and the shippers, and obviously it's all combined because I ordered a case from them recently and it said packed by Andrew, who's a friend of mine who, both of us who works, you know Andrew too, all of us are smiling, so we know Andrew, he's the fucking man. So I was like, oh, Andrew packed it. Didn't even throw me something extra, the motherfucker, but I bought a case, so what's he going to do? So, like, it was cool. Like, I just thought it was dope. I always wanted to try it, just to I've had some of it before, but I want to sort of get more. We've been getting more, my partner and I have been getting more into that stuff. So it can kind of go all the different ways. And, if it doesn't make sense for Fairweather to move into any of those categories, the number of them, then I don't think you need to do it. I don't think it's like a matter of life and death. It's more just like, do you feel like it complements your brand to have this additional offering? I really think that's all it comes down to. And does it make sense? Are you into it? Because that's what you said before. I think it was you said before, Ram, where you're like, Nate and I always talk about this, like breweries who make the beer that they want to make do the best stuff, even though like you actually were saying kind of the opposite, whereas like if you make what you want to make and people don't want to buy it, then cool. But then also, if you guys love making Crispies, then your Crispies are going to be really, really great because you love Crispies. But if you're forced to make a non-alcoholic, then it might not be a great non-alcoholic beer. But if you really want to make a sparkling water that's flavorful and blah, 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 then you'll make a killer one. So it's such a nuanced question.
Yeah, and I don't want to get it twisted. It's not like we wouldn't do that by any means.
Right.
It's more like you sort of see and hear a narrative in the industry that like sometimes it feels like people think the sky is falling, and it's not.
No.
Like just like stick and move, continue to like be positive. Explore what is potentially interesting to you. Keep an open mind and do whatever makes sense to you. Everything. If you want shit to be okay, it will be. It's going to be a lot of hard work. The economy's kind of fucked up, and it will remain that way for some time. But I just like, I know that it's kind of tough out there for people.
Yeah.
And like we will see like we'll see some tough times too, but ultimately like you just have to, and I have to remind myself of this in my personal life all the time too. It's just like focus on like what makes you happy, but don't forget to work hard, and everything will be all right. It's just keep busy. If something jumps out at you as what you want to do, then do that. Spend your time that way. Don't spend your time some kind of fucking way that you don't want to do what you're doing, unless you have to. But if you're in a position where like you can make decisions for yourself, make them based on that. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah, follow your gut.
Those are wise words, man.
Yeah, man. I really align with that as a business owner myself, and knowing that like it can go all sorts of different ways. I very much feel that, and I think it's really good advice for other breweries that are listening to that. And maybe they're not sure whether to get into it. Like, trust your gut. If your gut and your sort of joy takes you in a direction and you want to do something that may be slightly different to your typical offerings, do it. Explore it. Try it. If not, don't feel pressure to do it.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise life is long, right? Like you can screw up a bunch of times and not end up too worse for wear. It's worse to not do it. So
yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah, man.
This is great.
All right. So should we crack this last beer before we wrap up?
What do you got here? What's the last beer?
Cheap Seats.
Sure. I'm getting absolutely dickered out here.
See, one of the things that we learned.
We've come this far, right?
If anything less than dicked, then did we have a podcast?
And you said you were catching an Uber home, so you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Rob's responsible. So this one, 4.2%, nice little crusher. You were telling me about this one earlier, Rob. You were saying it was kind of like a. Can you just describe this beer, like how you told me?
Absolutely. So Cheap Seats is like my shit. This is what I'm drinking 90% of the time.
Love that.
It's it started as a genesis of going like we really wanted to explore this kind of like hazy IPA yeast without like blasting it with hops. We wanted to see what kind of ester profile it was capable of producing. I've got I'm on my 6th can of beer hiccups right now.
I just hiccuped and hit my elbow into the whole stand, so don't worry about it, bro. We out here.
But it's and then we just touched it with a little bit of Simcoe and Eldorado, like a 22-pound dry hop over 40 hex, so it's not much. And I don't know, it's very dry. We've spent some time like dialing in the mineral profile in the water, and honestly, like I love it. I think it's our answer to a macro light lager where you go like we can make seriously crushable beer too, but it still is going to have character and it's going to be interesting, and that's what I'm into.
I love it. I'm here for it. So would you just, I mean, like on looking at Untapped, it says it's a pale ale. Would you call it a pale ale? Like what would be the description of this bad boy?
We just call it light beer.
Okay. So it's like hazy. So it's sort of like given like that family, like the hop sort of family, as opposed to like a lager or anything. I don't always put it in a box or anything. But I'm just always curious as to the intention behind the creation.
The intention was to see what the yeast did, and obviously it interacted really well with hops, but we're used to putting like 100 pounds of hops in a 30 hec batch or whatever. So we go like, what if we put 22 pounds of hops or whatever um, in a in a 40 hec batch, where it's just like much like Pillow Talk, like you want that elegant hop experience, but with a beer that is like very crushable, that can be made quickly, um, and that has a completely different way of expressing like itself than this ale yeast that is like really beautiful and expressive, as opposed to whatever else it is, a lager yeast or whatever. Usually when people have beers made with this yeast, they're absolutely smashed with hops, which is great, but the average person loses the yeast character in the balance. It's hard to perceive it, whereas that's what we wanted to do, is like make sure that you could perceive what this like integral component of uh of the beer is actually doing on its own.
Mm. Okay. It's given pale ale as far as it's just nice and bright, light,
Yeah.
creamy, tropical, really smooth.
It's got like it's definitely got a more effervescent like carbonation to it, which is pretty common to a sub 5%. It's like that's pretty in line with what I would with what I would expect for for that ABV. But the what I like is that it doesn't have a sharp acidic bitterness to it. still got some nice soft body and like and some really nice hop character to it.
Yeah.
And what we found was that softness was actually too soft until we like turned up the like sulfate in the water, and you go like, oh, okay, we're adding a little more sulfate. It makes it a little snappier because otherwise, not only is like the uh the beer it's it's not acidic at all. It's like it's low alcohol, so it has it's just a higher water content. Um, but it also has like El Dorado there, which is like a very like a rounding agent. It makes this like ooey gooey melon sort of thing. So you like try to to some extent like a little bit of sulfate is almost like a squeeze of lime on a melon. Um, it's not acidity, but it is like mineral structure built into the beer.
Interesting. Water is everything.
And
So.
yeah, and so like I don't know, we just like at the brewery we love this beer. We love to like have this one. This is what the cooler is full of when you're out there like at the park or at a staff party. You're crushing beers like sometimes you see, as much as we may like these beers, you can tell what gets left in the cooler after a day of like partying, right? And it's never Cheap Seats.
Interesting.
Like there are
There
none
you
of
go.
those
That
left.
says a lot. That says a lot.
Yeah, so that's the shit. So that's what we do. Um and we all really believe in this beer. We love it, and we think that if we made it a constant offering, then other people will too. It's the same thing with high grade. Like consistency was key. Um, People go like, well, we got printed menus and we got this and that, and we want to be able to depend on you, basically. And when we committed to high grade, it took time, but we saw eventually that brand take off because we could make a commitment. And there's not very many people who are willing to go like, yeah, we'll give you like a Fairweather rotational tap, like, and our server's gonna have to learn how to describe every beer that comes out every week or whatever. You go like, no, like they want something consistent that they can get used to, that they can describe to their customers, that they can describe to their trainees or whatever. And is also delicious and appealing to everybody. And so that's what we're kind of trying to do with Cheap Seats, is go like, we all know that you guys want to hang out in the park and muck beers from fucking sun up to sundown, and so like, let's do it. This is what we want the same thing, so like, let's do it with this.
This is the beer for that.
It's the money one,
Yeah.
the park beer. It's
Yeah,
key,
absolutely.
bro. And to be tasty, and that, like you said, that it's never the one that's left in the cooler because it's so approachable, and I almost feel like that's really what speaks to where people are at with their beer consumption right now, kind of thing. Coming back to that last conversation, like I feel like this type of thing is more important than it used to be. That real low ABV stuff, and also this is interesting because it's 4.2. It's not like 3 or 2%. It's 4.2. So it's still in this sort of like, I don't even know what to call it, like that sort of like middle area of ABV where it's like very crushable, and you can easily have half a dozen of these in an afternoon and still be in a good condition type of thing, as opposed to something a little more intense.
Well, I mean, let's face it, people still like the effects of alcohol. There's a reason people have been doing it. Yeah, it's all right. So it's one of those things where I don't know, it's an everyday beer that hopefully people enjoy. We really do.
I get it.
We think it provides something that is like a little bit elevated from the experience of like just another light lager. It's like it's floral, it's like it's fleshy and fruity, but not so much that like you gotta go like, okay, that's enough of those. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this super drinkable. You know, you guys and us, like we all live in this bubble. You gotta trust yourself, right? Like as much as like nobody wants to sound over the top and like arrogant by any means, but like you spend a tremendous amount of your time and life focused on beer and like what's good and what isn't. Like don't like you got to trust yourself, right? Um,
Yeah.
you're the expert in any given group. And that can be risky because you can like silo yourself uh and live in your own world, but also like I don't know, that's not something that like that's you should also like give that expertise some weight. And so like when all the people at Fairweather go like I drink cheap seats all the time, I go like, well then like there's something there.
That's a really good point. And part of that kind of like responsibility is being like the person who knows a little bit about beer in any given group is to cater the needs to that individual. And if this is the need, like if they're like, yeah, man, I just want something light, flavorful that I could just kind of sip on all day and it not be too much, like, well, welcome, here you go. You know, like it doesn't always have to be an 8% double IPA or a 10% Imperial Stout type shit. Like this is like a very welcome. Like I would argue now that based on the conversations before that we're having, like with the changing of the I don't know the interest in the lower ABV stuff. Like Nate and I talk about this all the time. Like I'm probably a little more than him into the lower ABV stuff. I still love a good double IPA for sure. But I would find myself leaning towards the lower side of things so I could have more. And this is of that ilk because it's flavorful and you could happily buy a 6-pack or more of these and go nuts and still be good to go and conversational and, have your wits about you type of thing, which is perfect because it's like the ultimate situation if you're looking for a session beer that isn't, it's like it's not, there's some sort of weird thing. We talked about this, I swear, Nate, if you like the other pod, like a last pod or the one before, where like session IPA is like a weird term that's like ruined. Yeah. Like nobody really wants a session IPA, but like this is just positioned as the light beer. If you called it a pale ale, I'd be equally interested, type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it
hits.
Yeah, well, we used to call it pale beer.
Okay.
But we just started calling it light beer so like more people would understand like what it is. Because pale beer, I mean, what is that?
That's fair.
That's
fair.
Are you trying to go like okay, like I just want.
Yeah, like pale. I'm almost thinking more refers to the color than to the quality of the beer itself. Light is more like is a bit more universal. I see that.
I want you to understand the intention.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you put LITE specifically, just for people who haven't seen the can, like that word is almost vague because it could be taken as, yes, thank you, Nate. It could be taken as light beer, meaning it's a crispy, like it's some sort of a lager, or it could just be lower ABV beer with mad flavor, which is really what this is. So it's almost like a category unto itself because I think it would be fair to say it'd be rare to find a pale ale be below 4.5, and this is 4.2. So like calling it a pale beer, like you said, Ram, is a little, it wasn't connecting. Light beer it's just so interesting because you're sort of like, well, what is this now? What am I getting into? So once they try it once, like, oh, sick. Like my sort of putting a thing in a box is a pale ale. It's a light pale ale with tons of flavor that I can have en masse.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's the idea.
It's a bit.
It's like,
sorry, Rob.
Nothing. You guys get it. It's like it's it's a more discerning uh like version of a tailgate beer. Like
Mm,
if you want to just crush beers all day because you want to be a shithead, like by all means. That's what we want to. That's what we are.
shithead
So like
beers.
but we're also we have uh, a palate that like doesn't necessarily agree with banquet or natty light all day. So
Yeah,
like this is a solution to that problem.
right.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I see that for sure. And this is obviously a pretty decent seller, I would imagine. Then, like people, is it a year rounder, or is it kind of like when you bring it in, it just flies, and then people want more? Or what's the
Yeah,
vibes?
it's something that we've recently made available all the time, and yeah, like people are flocking to it. They seem to really like it. Whereas like even high grade took a lot more time, whereas like high grade or cheap seats is like right off the bat, like
Boom.
people are stoked about this thing, and so we find ourselves brewing it constantly and going like, holy shit! All we needed to do is say that like, yes, it's here, and like, and people are jacked about it.
Mm. Dude, that's
Nice.
fascinating. I love that.
Yeah,
I feel like tonight we really got a really good, and we didn't do it in the obvious order too, which I also find interesting.
Yeah.
We got a real unique sort of like run of kind of what you guys do, like that still didn't scratch the surface because there's so many things you guys do from like the barrel aged stuff and your darker beers and whatever. But I feel like this gave everybody a nice little snapshot of sort of what Fairweather's about, from the branding to the ethos to the styles. Multiple different sort of hobby beers and multiple different crispies and shit. I think we really like delivered on what Nate and I were hoping to sort of showcase from you guys, and we got the story and stuff. Was there anything else we wanted to make sure that we added in? We just touched 3 hours, which is I kind of assumed it was going to go this far, and just based on the conversations we'd had, Ram, and that the three of us chatting, and I've seen you a few other times. Like I'm like, this is going to be a longer one because, good people, good beers. Like fuck man, we're going to yap. But
yeah. I mean, I would say that like no, I'm stoked. The only thing is like I would love to drink other people's beers with you guys and like and see what you thought. Like I respect your opinion. I think that it's cool to talk to people who have like their nose to the grind. Like I I get locked up in my own little world here, so it's like
yeah,
it's very nice to just talk to you guys who are like knowledgeable and invested in the industry and culture and stuff. So it's very cool.
that's dope, man. I honestly like. I know Nate, you'd be down as fuck. Like, I'd love to hang out, and I know Nate's in town relatively, regularly due to family being nearby. So I figure it won't be too difficult to be able to figure something out. We can go and just crush a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah,
That'd
that'd
be
be
great.
great.
You know what I mean? Ubers go from Burlington, from where you're at, and I could do the same thing here. And man, I feel like that'd be cool, bro. Just to like really soak it up, bring a bunch of stuff, or we go somewhere, whatever it is, and just soak it up. But I think this has been cool to get to know the Fairweather story, because that's something that like is important to us to be able to capture on the pod as well, and just to really see. Like I said, man, you guys are in the top 10 for 2022 because we're big fucking fans of everything you do, from the branding to the products to the brew pub. It's just so well deserved, and thank you for everything you do for beer here in Hamilton and in Ontario, man. I love it. We both do.
Thank you. I appreciate the shit out of you guys. Thank you for all the kind things you've said and for having us tonight. That's dope, man. I appreciate you guys.
It's really been a genuine pleasure. Fairweather has been a special brewery to a lot of the Ontario scene for a number of years now. It was great to finally have you on. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely.
Well, hopefully it's
First of
not the
many.
last. I
No chance.
appreciate the hang. So thank you guys.
Oh, absolutely, bro. We're going to be doing this regular. We'll make this like an annual thing, 100%. So, Ron, we really appreciate your time, man. Thank you for hanging out. So we're going to wrap this up and hang out at the end, and we'll finish up off air. Where can everybody find Fairweather online and in person? Like, what's the deal?
Well, so first of all, we got Fairweather Brewing, fairweatherbrewing.com. That's where you can buy all of our beer and everything like that. You got at Fairweather Beer on Instagram. And the ideal situation is that you come visit us at 5 Ofield Road in Hamilton. And while you're in the neighborhood, come visit Grain and Grit Brewing. And if you can make it into this compound of the candy factory, then you get in there too. But make a day of it. We appreciate the shit out of everybody who comes out here, and we got a great staff, and they'll take good care of you and everything. So, yeah, that's the way to do it.
I love that, and definitely Nate and I can agree. You know, we've been there a bunch. Oh well, I know Nate, you and I went for I think it was your first time. I've been there a bunch of times, and it's always a pleasure. The staff are lovely. It's just it's a pleasure. It's such a great hang. So definitely go check it out. Nathaniel, where can everyone find you online, sir?
You can find me everywhere at NathanDoesBeer, and you can find me right here co-hosting BAOS podcast. And while we're at it, to boast something local relevant to the conversation here, I know Ram, you and the team were out here at Dominion City a couple of weeks ago, and I know you've got a collab that's coming out fairly soon that I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, love the crew, man. We I going out to visit Dominion is an event for me, and I love that team over there, and I can't wait for the beer to come out. I can't say enough about those guys. Love them.
Yeah, but we're the exact same. We love those guys to death. The whole crew there are just spectacular, and I'm really looking forward to that beer.
Hell yeah! So by the time this pod comes out, maybe the beer this pod will be out in 2 weeks, I think. Not this Wednesday, but the one after. So that means would the beer be out by then?
Hopefully.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Go hassle Dominion City.
I think we'd be close. I think we'd be within a week or whatever.
Okay, so keep an eye out for that, and then of course in May you got the your anniversary as well. So there'll be a whole bunch of stuff happening for May. So definitely go follow Fairweather online and make sure you sign up to their newsletter, because they have banging newsletters with all sorts of deals and delivery specials and all the new beers that's going on. So that's how I keep up to date with everything, was for signing up for that. So Ram, you're a legend, bro. We really appreciate you. Once again, stick around for a sec. I'm going to wrap this up, and we'll hang out offline. But truly, thank you so much, Nate. You're a legend. I appreciate you as well. Everybody, thank you for watching and listening. I hope you really enjoyed this one, because we truly did. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up. Hit subscribe below, Nathaniel. Hit the freaking notification bell.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast. We drop every Wednesday. We're dropping the audio in the morning at 7 a.m. just in case the morning commuters want to have a little something to listen to on their way to wherever they're going. And we drop the visuals around 8 p.m. on Wednesday evenings as well. So you can go and watch that with dinner, or after dinner, have a drink. You know what I'm saying? Grab a Fairweather, watch that shit. You know the vibes. Also, if you are on any of the podcast platforms, throw us a 5-star review. It helps significantly. We're out here, you know, we've been 8 years strong almost, out here representing Canadian craft beer and beyond. So anything is very appreciated. So thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.